Mike to say the prayer tonight.
Thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, creator of heaven and earth and all that dwell in them, we thank you for our beautiful city of Grants Pass. Thank you for those who work hard to make it a wonderful place to live. Forgive us where we have fallen short in keeping it so. We lift up the mayor, public safety, and members of this council. Give them wisdom this evening as they make decisions on behalf of the people, as well as those who live in the county. Help them to be mindful of their responsibility to be good stewards over the people's money that has been entrusted to them. Let their decisions keep our community a place where families and businesses can prosper and live in safety so they can enjoy life. We deny access to any spirits of contention, confusion, or disruption. Father, we proclaim and declare that this meeting will be conducted in an orderly, respectful manner that is this evening in accordance to your will. We ask all these things in the precious name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
All right, please rise for the flag salute and remove your covers if you got them. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, just do a quick roll call. We got Rob.
Here.
Indra.
Here.
Rick.
Here.
Victoria.
Here.
Seth.
Here.
Eric is not present just yet. Joel.
Here.
All right, and Kathleen.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. So before we get started into everything tonight, I want to take a few moments and we want to give a special recognition for outstanding volunteerism for Arden McConnell. A little bit of background with Arden. She was born and raised in Grants Pass. She was honored in Grants Pass High School's Hall of Fame. From an Oregon pioneer family, great-grandfather John McConnell came west for the gold rush and stayed, the first of 5 generations of McConnells within Southern Oregon. Her father, Sam McConnell, was a Grants Pass city councilman and owned a popular Palace Cafe downtown for many years. Arden restored the 1936 family home on Rogue River and got it placed in the National Register for Historic Places in the 1990s. A few of us put some words together for her notable accomplishments. Arden was a vice chair of the city's Historical Buildings and Sites Commission. She has served on the commission continuously for 20 years, helping to preserve and protect and promote our local historical district. Arden is responsible for getting GP city council meetings televised, which has greatly increased public accessibility and transparency, and a few memorable comedy moments as well, too. Arden is also responsible for getting the city to substantially lower fees charged to the public for fulfilling public information requests. Among her many other accomplishments on the HBSC has helping get Riverside Park listed on the National Register of Historical Places by the National Park Services and helping to create a residential historic district in the city's northwest neighborhoods. Now, Arden was unavailable to attend tonight, but hopefully she'll be watching the meeting or she can watch it afterwards since it is televised, thanks to her. Here with us is her son. He's traveled down from Washington State to be with her, and we want to acknowledge his presence, and if we could have you guys stand, I'd like everybody to give Arden and their family, for all their participation in Grants Pass, a well-rounded applause. Thank you very much, and wish her well for us. Thank you. All right, so we're going to start in tonight's agenda with interviews for the Budget Committee
Clint?
candidates. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to make a motion to extend the date for applicants for this pool to the Budget Committee.
A second.
Okay, we have a to receive applications?
To extend the date on applications, because I think there's people that might have their applications in, but they aren't being interviewed.
So I'm going to have to defer to JC because I know we are on a time crunch for this, and we actually have applicants, and we were going to be doing interviews as well as appointing people tonight. So JC, can you weigh in on the motion to extend the deadline to accept applications?
Yeah, so the orientation starts for Budget Committee on March 2nd, and so we like to give people enough time in advance to let them know where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be. And then Budget Committee obviously starts meeting in April, and so being able to give them enough time to make those plans and arrangements rather than last minute.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a whole month still until the
So we have 4 available positions on the committee, and we have 4 applicants that will be seen tonight. How long was the application process open for?
I know it's a Diane question, and she's not here tonight, but I want to say it was open for quite a long time.
Okay.
And then we also had the application process last year where we did not fill 2 seats, I believe.
Okay. So there is a motion on the table, and there was a second, so I guess I will run that across the dais to see if there is any support for that. So there's a motion on the table with a second to postpone Budget Committee meeting application timeline, which basically would we even go forward with tonight?
Well, I guess that'd be further discussion with council. If you're extending it, then you may not want to do the interviews today, or you've got people here who have been scheduled to interview, you can interview, and then if you get more applicants, you can interview them at a second opportunity.
Okay, so let's just weigh in on the motion at hand. Yeah, hold on 1 second. So just to reiterate, the motion is to extend the timeline for Budget Committee meeting applications with a second. Further discussion of Rick?
So I have a question. Of the 4 applicants tonight, if we, as a council or individually, only wanted to choose 2 out of the 4, we have that option after the interviews, and that could leave. And then at that point, the motion would leave the floor open for additional or for those people to be chosen in the future. Is that a possibility?
If council desires, they can appoint 0 to 4 people this evening.
Okay. And then if we're not filling all the positions, it would automatically leave the applications open only if we pass the motion.
Yeah, I would say if you went through all 4 applicants tonight and only appointed less than that 4, then you'd have to open up the application process again to fill those vacant seats.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll proceed with the motion on the table. Any further discussion? Rob?
Can you repeat the motion?
Sure thing. The motion is to post or to extend the timeline for accepting applications to the Budget Committee meeting, Budget Committee, with a second. Any further discussion or questions? Joel?
So if the motion passes, then what does the timeline look like?
That would have to go into discussion with council.
So, I'm sorry. So if the motion passes, are we still going to go forward with interviews tonight and appoint whatever number we might feel appropriate to do tonight? Or does that cancel our process for appointing people tonight? In other words, we can extend this if we don't appoint 4, but if we appoint 4, then there's no extension needed, right? But are we still going to go forward with the process of interviewing and appointing tonight, even if this gets extended?
So as I understand it, the motion is limited to just extending the timeline for the applications.
If it's needed.
It would have to be further discussion if this passes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Victoria?
I would ask Councillor Crone if you would entertain a friendly motion to open Budget Committee applications for a determinate time, like 1 week, and then also, and a second friendly amendment, that we would go ahead and interview the people who were here tonight.
Yes, I think that would be fine to extend it a week and interview tonight, but also leave it open to interview the people that might have their applications in a week.
Aaron?
From a date perspective, one of the reasons why we left 2 positions open last year was we were in a situation where we were getting close to actually having our first budget meeting, and we didn't have applications. So we decided not to fill those positions because we didn't want someone coming in after the process has started. In order to meet that timeline on when we're going into the budget, if we left it open for another week and a half with applications closing on the 13th, if this is where council wanted to go, we could then potentially schedule for interviews on the meeting of the 18th, where you would interview and appoint like you're scheduled for tonight. If you do not appoint all 4, or you appoint less than that tonight.
Okay, so clarification on the motion is to extend the timeline to accept applications for Budget Committee members with the amendment of a date certain on that 1 week, as well as proceed forward with the interviewing of 4 candidates on the table tonight. So the question I still have is, okay, any further discussion on that? Indra?
I just have a couple of questions. So when did the deadline close for the applications?
Julie?
We actually had 2 advertisements go out. The first one went out November 24th, and it closed on January 2nd. And then we had another one moment. That went out January 6th. And, sorry, there's a lot of folders here. It went out January 6th, and then it closed on January 23rd. So we've been advertising for this since November.
Okay, and do we have applications that came in after the 23rd?
I'm not sure. I can go through Diane's files. That's not something I handle, but I could look through her files.
Because it sounds like we know of people that wanted to apply but didn't get it in, is what it sounds like. Okay. I'm not opposed to extending it a week out if we have better, not better. I'm glad that the applicants applied, but it would give us more to look at, to have a bigger choice, which I think is always good. So I'm not opposed to that, as long as we do interview tonight, which we are.
Rick?
So I just want to confirm, if the council wants to, we can, after the interviews, we can vote, we can approve 1 or 2 or more people accordingly. Is that correct?
That is still a question at large.
Okay, well, I would be
The
supportive.
motion doesn't cover that.
Okay.
Did the amendment cover that?
No, the amendment covered interviews tonight.
Okay.
Seth?
Yeah, I would only be supportive of this if we can interview and appoint tonight. If there's open space, then we can extend it.
Okay, so the motion on the table, as it's been stated, is to extend the time period for application acceptance an additional week, as well as interview the 4 applicants through an interview process tonight. That is the extent of the motion with a second. Any further discussion?
Well, yeah, so it's clear that I'm unclear, and it seems other councilors are unclear. If this motion passes, we, at least myself and some others, say they don't want to kill the potential for appointing people tonight. So I guess I'll go back to the person who made the motion. What is your intent?
Yeah,
there?
I can make amendment to that I would like to extend it for a week and then include the people in the voting process that we would potentially be still interviewing.
Okay, so is your intent that we
So
would be able to
not
appoint
make
tonight?
not make the vote tonight, but interview the people that are here. I don't want to waste their time. I want them to be able to interview, but also include the ones that might have applied within this next week.
So, I'm sorry.
So to clarify, the motion is the way I'm understanding it, is the motion is to extend the applicant time period an additional week, interview the 4 applicants that are in-house tonight, and no further action would happen tonight. So we would have to push actually appointing budget committee members to a date certain after the applicants, additional applications would come in and additional interviews would have to happen. Is that how your motion plays out?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And there is still a second on that after all the amendments? Yes? All right. Seth, did you have something? Indra?
Yes, while I'm not opposed to having more potential applicants, I guess my concern would be those who already applied and were interviewed and thought we would decide tonight. And would that put off people from applying to committees because they don't know what we're going to do? When the application process closes, they think, well, there might be extra weeks. So that's my only concern. I think it is something to think about.
Kathleen?
Well, I think if we voted tonight, then people that would potentially still apply would not even do it because they think it's not worth it. It's already happened. So I think that I believe that there are applications that missed the deadline that are ready to be interviewed, but they weren't included in this tonight. So I'm just making appropriations for that to happen.
Further discussion, Seth?
Yeah, I mean, I think the deadline's a deadline, right? Julie said that this has been out since November. I mean, that's plenty of time to have an application in. So again, I'll only be supportive if we interview tonight and we can appoint tonight. If we have open spaces after that, then great. But other than that, I'm not in support.
Okay.
Okay, to reiterate the motion so everybody is fully clear, the motion on the table is to extend the Budget Committee application deadline an additional week, interview the 4 applicants who have submitted already tonight, and nothing else happens tonight. Rick, did you want to add in?
Well, I guess I would like, after we do the interviews, I would still like the opportunity to vote on the 4 applicants that are before us tonight. But if we only elect 2, then I think at that point we would leave it open for new applications.
Thank you, Rick. Just to reiterate the motion again, the motion is to extend the timeline an additional week to accept applications for the Budget Committee, interview 4 applicants in-house tonight, and no further action tonight. So no appointing Budget Committee members tonight.
So let me just try to clarify.
Go ahead.
So just to clarify then, it's my understanding that if people vote yes on this motion, then we cannot appoint anyone tonight. Right. Anyone who wants to vote no, anyone who wants to appoint someone tonight, or all 4 potentially, would have to vote no on this motion.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seth?
So can you make an amendment to appoint tonight, and if there's open space, then we'll extend it?
Yeah, I guess that's fine. I mean, I think it would be great to wait and include the ones that might still want to be part of this. So that was just my intention, is to be fair for everybody to vote all at the same time on all the applicants.
Okay,
After
well, you're trying
after extending the.
Yeah, you're
the
trying to
timeline.
judge the support of all 8 council members, or 7 council members that are present. So are you extending your motion even further?
Yes.
Okay. So to clarify your motion. So basically, we're just kind of back to square one, actually. But the motion on the table is to extend the Budget Committee application timeline an additional week. Interview 4 candidates that are in-house tonight. Council has the ability to appoint all 4 council members, or all 4 committee members, or?
Well, that's why I wanted to wait with the vote, because that's kind of weird.
Well,
I
then
mean,
stick with
it
your
would be-
original.
Yeah, it would be great to be able to just do that, vote on them all at the same time.
Okay, so I would go back to your previous motion. Correct me if I get this wrong. Your previous motion would be to extend the application deadline additional week for the Budget Committee, interview 4 applicants in-house tonight with no appointments tonight.
That was
Okay,
what
so
I was
that is your
thinking.
motion on the table. We have a second still. Any further discussion before we have a roll call vote? Joel?
Well, I like to just have one vote and have all the pool of applicants available. It doesn't seem to me to have phase 1 and phase 2. That sends a poor message to anybody that's not selected in phase 1 that's qualified. So I think they all need to be evaluated at the same time. My thoughts.
Okay, so the motion is on the table and everybody's clear with the motion. We're going to go to a vote because we have one applicant we're pushing their timeline at this moment in time. Indra. Oh, sorry. Kathleen.
Yes.
Indra.
Yes.
Joel.
Yes.
Victoria.
Yes.
Seth.
No.
Rick.
No.
Rob.
No.
Holy crap.
4 to 3 yes.
Oh, sorry. I retract my holy crap because I actually counted wrong. Okay, so it passes tonight, so we will go into, we will extend the timeline an additional week for acceptance of applications, and we will proceed with interviews with no appointments tonight. With that, does he still have time? Yeah. Okay, sorry. Thank you. We're going to call up Nicholas Stark first because he has and you have something good to go to. Where are you going to go to?
Oh, I volunteer on Wednesday nights at my church's youth group, so I have a bunch of freshman boys to corral.
Excellent, excellent. So
supposedly.
what we'll do is we'll start out here, give us a quick little tiny synopsis on why you want to be in a budget committee meeting, and then counselors will ask you a few questions if that's okay.
Yes, and I will try not to cough the entire time. Apologies for that. So basically, I'll give you a little bit of my background. I was born and raised here in Grants Pass, went to Hidden Valley High School, graduated in 2016, and then went off to college in Virginia, where I spent 7 years doing college, and then working for the American Legislative Exchange Council as really a tax and fiscal policy expert. For state budgets specifically. So my experience in doing this sort of thing, analyzing budget documents, going through, knowing what the best practices are for free market, limited government, best stewardship of taxpayer dollars, it's quite extensive. I personally, I'm a priority-based budgeting individual, so basically asking questions like, what is the role of government? What are the essential services? How will we know if the government's doing a good job? What should all of this cost? And then when cuts and if cuts need to be made, how do we properly prioritize that? So I wholeheartedly believe in committees like this to be able to advise you as the council to best steward, how you can best steward the tax dollars that you guys receive as the city of Grants Pass. So really that's my heart behind being on this committee and wanting to be in this role. So.
Thank you. Bring it back to council for questions. Victoria?
What is 1 or 2 issues that you find are really important and pressing for the city right now?
Yeah, the biggest one is public safety. I think that we've got to be able to best fund public safety. I mean, that's how the citizens actually interact best with government, is through the public safety sector. For me, it's best funding it, but it's also making sure that it's effectively funded, that we're spending it on programs that actually do put the public safety of citizenry ahead of other priorities. I also think that one of the issues, I don't know that this is talked about enough, is what can we actually separate ourselves from the state and the requirements of the state. There's certain things that we have to do by law with the funds that the state gives us, but there's also things that I don't believe that we necessarily need to take dollars from the state for. So that's kind of another piece. I know that's a little out there, but that's another thing that I constantly consider. For context, I currently work in state politics with an organization that really is seeking to influence the conservative movement. So.
Any further questions, Kathleen?
So, Nick, what is the greatest asset that you can bring to the City of Grass Pass Budget Committee?
Yeah, I think it's my extensive experience looking at budgets and having the mindset of stewarding taxpayer dollars first, effectively stewarding that. So the research that I've been able to do, looking at comprehensive, financial reports, all these sorts of things, finding little, problems in state budgets is something I've also had experience with. So really, it's that extensive experience of the research, the analysis, and sometimes the commentary on it as well. So being able to translate that into looking at the city's budget and then advising you guys with that.
Seth?
Yeah, I appreciate you applying, Nick. I was just curious, is there anything that, based on last year's budget, what we decided to move forward with, that you would have changed?
Not anything that particularly comes to mind directly. Yeah, no.
Rob?
Seth covered my question. I was actually going to ask, did you look at last year's budget, and what was your takeaway from it?
Yeah, I'm realizing that I should have. So I'll admit that. And my intent is to look at that and know more extensively in the future.
Well, thank you for your honesty. Any further questions? All right, I'll leave you a couple minutes with parting. Oh, we have a question? Sorry, you got to raise your hand quicker. Go ahead, Victoria.
Yeah, so, but you have had experience with budget, so I just wanted to give you the opportunity to describe that a little bit more if you'd like to.
Yeah, so I'll just talk about the research that I did previously with the American Legislative Exchange Council. Or ALEC is the acronym. I'm going to use that quite a bit because it's a lot easier. So my research at ALEC primarily focused on tax and fiscal policy within state budgets. And what we would do is every year, one of the reports that we would put out was an analysis of state pension plans and looking at how they're funded, doing actuarial accounting to estimate what is the unfunded liability of the states actually, apart from what they actually give. So, going through the annual comprehensive financial reports that states put out to look at these different, variables and doing the math to calculate all that. We would also do that with bonded obligations, which you can find in the same documents for a lot of states, as well as other post-employment benefit liabilities that go to public workers as well. So that's just a snapshot of that. Other things we would look at, what do states spend on? How can they reallocate some of the tax dollars when states were looking at tax increases, that sort of thing. What could they cut back? What could they scale? That sort of thing. So.
Thank you.
And last call. Any further questions? Do you want a couple parting words?
I just want to say thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, sir. All right, next applicant, we'll just go opposite list. Heidi Napier. Do we have Heidi? Nope, okay. Nancy Listier? Go ahead and give us a little opening statement, and then we'll ask you a few questions, if you don't mind.
Okay, well, this is the second time I've applied for the Budget Committee. Replied last year, and I think that I could have added some value to the Budget Committee last year. If you'll see from my application, I usually say that I was a financial analyst for IBM for almost 32 years. So I wanted to expand on that a little bit because a lot of people don't really know what that means. And IBM afforded me the opportunity to change jobs about every 2 years. So I started in basic accounting, general accounting, did expense accounting, did cost accounting. I did pricing. I priced laptops all the way up to mainframe computers. I worked for manufacturing divisions. I worked for sales divisions. I led organizations of 5 people up to hundreds of people. I managed budgets of over $100 million of expense, had $4 billion of revenue targets. So these were all opportunities that I had within IBM, and it all kind of falls under that category of financial analyst, but it was actually a much broader opportunity than that. And I really enjoyed 32 years of working for them. When I retired and moved here, it was to be with my grandchildren, but I didn't stop working right away. I started developing courses on accounting for the Small Business Development Center, and I taught people who were starting business or wanted to improve their skills. I taught them how to do basic accounting, how to pay their employees, how to develop and read financial statements so they knew if they were making money or not. And that really, that brought all of those skills that I learned in the commercial world into a nonprofit and a public sector world. So I learned a lot from doing that. And then since I've been here, I've been president or treasurer of a number of different nonprofit organizations in town. And I'm currently on the board for the Josephine Community Library Foundation, which is, of course, another nonprofit raising money for the new library. So how does all of that play together? Well, in putting together your budgets, you do the same thing that I did in the commercial world. You started out just recently doing your strategic plan. Now there's going to be an operational or a tactical plan developed which says how do you take that strategic plan and make it happen this year and every year in the future. You're going to set up budgets and goals, and you're going to track the actuals and report on those monthly and quarterly, and that's what I did. That was my experience, and that's the value, the skill set that I would bring to the Budget Committee.
Excellent, thank you. Bring it back to council for any questions. Kathleen.
So I'm curious, what is the most important financial issue facing the city, and why is it important?
I would put it under the heading of economic development because there are so many things wrapped underneath that. We need to find ways to sustain the businesses that we currently have and support the businesses that we currently have in town, but we also need to find ways to bring new businesses into town. I mean, losing Dutch Bros headquarters was a significant blow to the city, and we need to find ways to bring companies into our town, and that supports our tax base, which enables us then to do all of the other things that are in your strategic plan and are very important to the city. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Any further questions?
I'll just piggyback on that one.
Go right ahead, Kathleen.
What other financial issues face our city, from your perspective?
Again, it all kind of wraps up underneath economic development, but we certainly have the concerns with the homelessness and how the city's going to support that. That was $1.2 million this year that I don't think the city was really planning on spending that way. We have the salaries, the salary negotiations that have been going on almost a year now with the, not the negotiations themselves, but trying to understand and plan. That's a big impact to the city long term, is how are you going to fund that? And of course, we always talk about safety and law enforcement, and those are probably the biggest areas where the city's going to continue to have concerns and have to figure out how to fund it.
Thank you. Any further questions? Rob?
Yeah, thank you for being persistent and applying again this year, because your application looked noteworthy last year to me, so thank you for another shot. So you've identified a few areas that are, of course, areas of concern, and and people very eloquently can do that during this interview process, but when it really boils down to it, there was some controversy last year about what actually is the role of the Budget Committee, and do you have any thoughts on that?
You all, as the council, sets the direction, the strategic plan, and gives direction to the staff. The staff supports you in developing the budgets and making sure that they can be carried out effectively. The Budget Committee is there to make sure that the budget all ties together, that nothing's been overlooked, and to help you all understand, and it's just another set of eyes to make sure that everything is covered. It would not be the place of the Budget Committee to make recommendations on changing the budget. That's way too far down the road to be able to do that. But hopefully there would be some discussions about possibly some alternative ways to look at things.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All right. You want to leave us with a few parting words?
Well, I hope to be part of the Budget Committee. I think I have a lot of value to bring to it. There's not a lot of people who are trained to sit down and really look at the volumes of information that are part of the budget, or who enjoy doing that. And unfortunately, I guess I could say I'm one of the people who like to look at numbers. Numbers tell a story. They tell you where you're succeeding and where you have problems and where your successes can lie. So I enjoy doing that, and I think it would be of value to the committee to have me on there. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. All right, we have one last applicant. Tom.
Good evening.
Go ahead and give us a little blurb on why you want to be on the Budget Committee, sir.
Well, I was watching the announcement of vacancies on the Budget Committee, and when the first announcement came out, I really didn't think I would apply. But then I saw that the application deadline was extended. And when it was extended, that was a clue that the city didn't have enough applicants for the 4 positions. So I decided to apply. And I applied and got my application in on time. It's a couple of pages. I don't want to read it all, but I'd be glad to answer any questions about it. My perspective is, first of all, as an academic economist, there are a number of concepts that are helpful: opportunity cost, the time value of money, looking at product life cycle costs, and I think a lot of those are quite relevant to analyzing the budget. Also, as a local investor and property owner, additional fees and local taxes get magnified through the tenants who rent those apartments, and also as a landlord, there are financial implications of user fees and property taxes. Also, my family is here. I have 2 grandsons that are starting their careers here in Grants Pass. So I'm very interested in the relationship between the public sector, the private sector, through the budget. And I just want to add one more thing. Fund accounting is such an esoteric science. And over the years, I've learned a lot from Mr. Rowley about how to read budgets and how to understand fund accounting. It's not common. It's something that, in order to be effective in the Budget Committee, you really need to master at least the minimum of understanding of budget and fund accounting. So I'd be glad to answer questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from council? Rick?
Thank you, Tom, for replying. Could you elaborate? You were on the Budget Committee many years ago. Could you elaborate? You've already touched the subject a little bit, but can you elaborate what you learned and what you bring from that original exposure?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is that there's a really fine line often between policy and resource allocation questions. And it's clear that through strategic planning, the council sets policy. The Budget Committee then reviews the goals and looks at the resources that are available and makes recommendations regarding the allocation of those resources in pursuit of the policy established by the council. There's a fine line there that is sometimes very difficult. And I think it's important to keep that in mind, but also be a little bit flexible in having the Budget Committee participate in review and analysis of the implications of council policy decisions.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Rob?
Yeah, Tom, it's clear from working with you in the past that you have a pretty broad understanding of subject matter. And I'm just wondering, when you said that originally you weren't going to reapply this year, or you weren't going to apply again, can you give us any insight as to what your thinking was and why you changed your mind?
Well, I changed my mind primarily because I think I may be able to contribute to the process. So I think there's some value added that I could bring. I wasn't originally going to be an applicant because I've been so busy. I mean, just that simple. I needed to think about how to cut back on some of my commitments, and I've done that now. So I feel like I have time to devote to this process.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? All right, thank you. If you want a couple parting words?
Just thank you for the opportunity to be interviewed, and I look forward to working on the Budget Committee in the future.
Thank you. All right, I want to thank all of our applicants that were made themselves available for a gruesome interview tonight. Thank you very much. We will be extending the application deadline another week, and then we will schedule interviews from any applicants received, as well as do Budget Committee appointments at a later date. But thank you very much for your participation tonight. Okay, next on the agenda is a public hearing. I want to open, at this time I will open a public hearing to consider a customer dispute between, in regards to the franchise agreement between City of Grants Pass and Republic Services. We will begin the hearing with a staff report followed by public comment, and then the matter will be discussed and acted upon by the council. Is there anyone present who wishes to challenge the authority of the council to consider this matter? Seeing none, do any councilors wish to abstain from participating in this hearing or declare a potential conflict of interest? Seeing none, in this hearing, the decision of the council will be based upon specific criteria. All testimony and evidence must be directed towards those criteria. The criteria which applies in this case are noted in the staff report. It is important to remember, if you fail to raise an issue with enough detail to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal to the land. Oh, actually, that part doesn't actually apply to this one. I apologize. We're going off on a tangent here. Now we will proceed with the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a little bit different. What we have before you tonight is a public hearing to resolve a complaint, a customer complaint between a citizen and Republic Services in regard to the implementation of the franchise agreement. So just a bit of background, the franchise system in Oregon gives government agencies the right to give exclusive rights to provide certain services to their communities. Solid waste franchise rules were codified in the mid to late 1980s as major changes were made requiring cities to provide additional recycling options. Solid waste franchises provide agencies with better tools to provide cost-effective, environmentally compliant services. The city, however, has had its franchise agreements in place prior to 1985. They've been updated as service needs or regulations have changed. The benefits of the system have included clear points of responsibility, consistent service standards, streamlined collection, efficiency of scale, reduced road wear and tear, enhanced safety, reduced noise and traffic, and equal operational standards. The franchise agreement gives the franchisees exclusive rights to the collection and transportation of solid waste. Limited exemptions do exist within the agreements, but do generally preclude the transportation of solid waste for profit by any business in the franchise area. The agreements also specify dispute resolution procedures when a customer feels that the services provided are not in accordance with the agreement or that the franchisee is not acting in accordance with the terms of the agreement. So next in your slide is the customer dispute resolution. It is a pretty simplified process. The aggrieved citizen will try to resolve that issue with the franchisee. If that dispute remains unresolved, that citizen may petition the city in writing for a hearing on the complaint. And that is in your council packet, I believe, is attachment 1. I'm pulling that from memory. If I get it wrong, it's 1 or 2. And the city shall have the authority to determine whether the complaint is unfounded. And that's where we are today, is for you to hear that complaint. If we get to this and either party still remains unhappy with the decision, the next step would be for the aggrieved party to then ask to go to an arbitration hearing through a state arbitrator. So Mr. Kirkpatrick is here tonight. He has been prohibited from using the Merlin transfer station by Republic Services due to repeated violations of the franchise agreement. Mr. Kirkpatrick operates 2 businesses which he contends fit current exemptions in the franchise agreement, which should void the prohibition of his ability to utilize the transfer stations. The 2 businesses are the 2 Guys, 1 Truck, which is advertised as a junk removal service, and Thrift Right Here, which is advertised as a charity thrift store. In his complaint, he cites 2 exemptions, 2.81 and 2.87, and that's what we're here to determine tonight. Exemption 2.81 allows for the collection, transportation, and reuse of repairable, cleanable discards by private charitable organizations regularly employed in such activity. So to qualify for that exemption, Mr. Kirkpatrick must demonstrate that the businesses are private charitable, or that he is a private charitable organization, and that the materials being collected and hauled are repairable, cleanable discards intended for reuse, not just solid waste. Same top line. Exemption 2.87 is, as Mr. Kirkpatrick has also demonstrated, that one is very specific that a contractor registered under ORS 701 for hauling waste created in connection with the demolition, construction, or remodeling of a building or structure, or in connection with land clearing and development, such waste shall be generated by the contractor, and that's really the key word, the waste shall be generated by the contractor in connection with the contractor's construction site and hauled in equipment owned by the contractor. So again, to qualify for this exemption, Mr. Kirkpatrick would need to prove that he is a registered contractor, and all of those are in your council packet. He is a registered contractor and all of the other documentation. The waste is being hauled was created by demolition, construction, or remodeling of a building structure or in connection with the land clearing and development, and that waste was generated by Mr. Kirkpatrick in connection with those activities, and the waste is being hauled in his equipment. So, your role tonight is to hear testimony from Mr. Kirkpatrick and Republic Services and determine if the complaint is supported or if Mr. Kirkpatrick is operating in violation of the franchise agreement. Mr. Kirkpatrick will be given 10 minutes to present their case to you, followed by questions from you to Mr. Kirkpatrick, followed by a 10-minute presentation from Republic Services, also followed by questions from you, and then we will open that up to public comment, and then Mr. Kirkpatrick will be provided 5 additional minutes at the end of the hearing to kind of close up and give you a final statement. And with that, That is the end of my staff report.
Looks like we have a question for you. Rob?
Thanks, Jason. So going back to slide 8, in the white part at the bottom,
Yes.
the collection, so an exemption would be for the collection, transportation, and reuse of repairable or cleanable discards by private charitable organization regularly engaged in such activity.
Yeah.
So that would mean that there'd be an exemption for someone who fits that description to collect these items. So I guess the question would be for me, once someone has collected those items, whatever they're going to do with them, whether they're going to try to resell them or give them away or whatever their plan is, there's probably some period of time where it's taking up too much room at their store or their yard or whatever it is. What are they to do with those items after they've collected these exempt items, or they've taken advantage of this exemption, they've collected these items? What's the next step if they have no use for these items? What are they supposed to do with them?
I can only speak to how, say, Salvation Army or Goodwill Industries operates with these items. That's kind of what that exemption was written around, is the thrift store, the 503C, the charitable organization. They throw those items in the dumpster in the back of the store.
So when you say a dumpster, that would be something that's then collected by the franchisee?
Yes, sir.
That would be your understanding of what those organizations might do?
Yep.
Thank you.
I guess we got a couple other questions. Rick?
Thank you, Jason. Can you go to slide 3? So the franchise system in Oregon, is the solid waste franchise the norm for most of the cities in the state of Oregon?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think we're good. We got one more question. Indra?
So you mentioned they have dumpsters in the back of the stores to put them in, so, which they pay for to the company, but when you bring the waste in a truck to the company, you still pay for it. So do you know, are the rates much more to get the dumpster rather than bringing a truckload directly to the dump?
I'm not sure I know how to answer that question. Because service rates vary depending on the size of the dumpster, the frequency of the pickups, so there's a lot of variability there. It probably is slightly less expensive to drive that to the transfer station, but the franchise rules in general require you to only haul waste that you have generated. So that's kind of where the crux of the dispute on the franchise is coming to. But I didn't answer your question because I'm not quite sure that I got there.
And you mentioned 2 of the bigger thrift stores, but we have a lot of smaller ones. Do they all have dumpsters?
The other part of it is you have to be a 503C charitable organization to be allowed to haul these in the exemption. So just a thrift store will not necessarily qualify you for that exemption.
If you have questions about rates, I'm sure that could be addressed to the Republic Service when they
And I think a lot of these will also come out through the presentations by both parties, but I think, really the key piece there, is it a not-for-profit, and are they hauling just the clean, repairable materials for resale?
So is there anything, like estate sales, they go in and they have usable, they sell what they can, and they have junk. Do they haul them to the dump? What do the estate sale companies do?
I would assume if they're operating within the franchise, they're having a dumpster delivered and they're filling the dumpster.
Okay, it looks like we've sufficed that. Now we will have the complainant. You have 10 minutes for your presentation. Please start with stating your name and occupation and go for it.
Hi, Connor Kirkpatrick, 2 Guys, 1 Truck, and Thrift right here. Just to answer a couple of the questions, First of all, I have a dumpster at my thrift store from Republic Services. I fill it up every week, and it gets emptied every week. Part of the issue is when I put a couch into that dumpster, they take it out, and then in the morning I go out and the couch is on the side of the dumpster, and I can't get rid of a couch or a recliner. Anyway, so I have a dumpster from them. I utilize their dumpster service, you know. Also, another point, collection of the solid waste happens at the transfer station as well. They are collecting it there for then final disposal at the landfill. Nothing gets disposed of at the transfer station. It's getting further collected there. So I'm trying to stay within and help them collect the solid waste and take it to be disposed. I'm not questioning the franchise system. I understand the need for low trash prices and, you know, one company to serve specific areas and provide that curbside trash collection. I'm fitting within the exemptions. So I'm here to issue a formal demand that this city council fulfills its statutory duty to enforce the 2022 franchise agreement in its entirety, including the exemptions. For years, Republic Services has maintained an unlawful ban against me, my small business, and my nonprofit. This is not a request for a favor. I'm not asking for permission to operate my business. It is a demand for the rule of law. Republic Services is practicing selective enforcement and retaliation against those of us who highlight their service failures and environmental record. By allowing this ban to continue on city-owned property, the city is participating in willful negligence. Republic claims I am an unauthorized hauler. Your own contract states otherwise. It was just brought to my attention today that there is another exemption that I qualify for. Section 2.89 explicitly exempts persons engaged in property cleanup for preparing a property for sale or abating nuisances. I am a licensed contractor and a nonprofit leader doing exactly that. Why is this exemption vital? Because Section 3.1.6 of Republic's contracts says they won't go into garages, upstairs, or through gates. They refuse the hard labor, and then they ban the only people, like me, who are willing to do it. This creates a predatory environment for our seniors and disabled neighbors. If an elderly resident can't move a mattress or a couch to the curb, and Republic won't go get it, and the city lets Republic ban me from helping them, where does that waste go? This is a violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act and the public trust. Republic may point to when I removed cardboard from the parking lot of Bath & Body Works on their opening day. Republic failed their customer, leaving that customer with a nuisance in their parking lot on opening day. I abated that nuisance, and I brought that cardboard to a Republic Services cardboard dumpster at my store. Now let's talk about who is actually doing the work of environmental stewardship. While Republic is under DEQ investigation for methane leaks 200 times the legal limit at Coffin Butte, my nonprofit, Thrift Right Here, and my company, Two Guys, One Truck LLC, have been fulfilling state-mandated recycling goals for free. In the last year, I've diverted 952 mattress units from our landfill. That's 52,360 pounds, over 26 tons of bulky waste that did not take up space in our regional facility because I stepped up where Republic stepped back. It is a flagrant misuse of rights granted for a super emitter monopoly corporation to ban a local nonprofit and a licensed contractor that is single-handedly managing 26 tons of waste diversion for this community. If they are under DEQ enforcement action and state-level environmental violations, and they are refusing to participate in state-mandated recycling programs, why are we letting them dictate policy on our city-owned land? You have the power and the duty to end this tonight. Section 8.3.5 gives you the inherent and statutory right to act in the best interest of the people and to prevent flagrant misuse of this franchise. I have provided you with a draft order. It demands Republic lift this ban within 48 hours. If they refuse, you have the right under Section 5.8 to terminate their lease and take the facility back. If the tenant won't follow the landlord's rules, they don't get the keys to the building. This is the people's facility, not Republic's private monopoly. I have my ORS contractor's license. I have a 501c nonprofit corporation. The contract is clear. The data is clear. I'm demanding that you protect our seniors, protect our environment, protect the integrity of your own contracts. Order Republic to lift the ban tonight. Thank you. Would you like me to go through any of these sections? I highlighted a few sections of the agreement here. We can go through it together since I have a few more minutes left. Or we can go into the repairable, cleanable discards and what is a discard and at what point is waste generated. When I deem that I can't hold on to something any longer to sell it, that's when the waste is generated. That means I tried to reuse it. I tried to rehome it. At that point, when I deem that those discards are beyond point of sale, that is when the waste is generated. The waste isn't generated when I put it in my truck. The waste is generated when I deem, and that is me generating that waste. And all that point of repairable, cleanable discards and all those other exemptions don't even matter because exemption 2.89, Jason, can you put exemption 2.89 on the screen? Are you able to do that? So everyone can see that exemption as well. I know you guys all have it in your packet.
Yeah, to be quite honest, no, they don't, because you only turned that in today. And
I gave it to them.
Was only related to the two previous exemptions. 2.89 was not part of your original complaint.
And you guys all have that in front of you. I gave you guys all a copy of the full exemptions. And also, it is concerning that the staff report, while my complaint only listed those two exemptions, shouldn't the staff report have noted that other exemption? Or how come any of the multiple times I went to multiple solid waste agency meetings, why was that other 2.89 exemptions not brought to my attention when I went to the solid waste agency meetings in March or in August when I presented at the solid waste agency meeting? And actually in August when I presented, the solid waste agency said that we did need to make changes and something needed to change. And then in September, they heard from the haulers, and then they decided, we have these exemptions. We don't need to change anything because we have these exemptions. And that's fine, just honor the exemptions. And I guess I'll just defer my last 2 minutes if I need it at the end. And then questions, or is it question time?
If you're done, you can take more time if you want. If you're done, we can get some questions from the council.
Okay, yeah, I can take questions.
All right, any questions from council? Kathleen and then Rick. Kathleen?
Yeah, I hear your frustration, Connor. It's loud and clear. I want to address something a little bit more simpler, and it was maybe the charitable aspect of your business. Do you earn income with your business?
Are you talking about as a licensed contractor or my nonprofit thrift store?
Your nonprofit thrift store?
No.
None?
No, I don't earn any income from my nonprofit thrift store, no.
Okay.
Further questions, Rick?
Thank you, Connor. So for your nonprofit and the store that you have, do you actually have employees there, or is it just basically you, or?
I have volunteers. I don't have any employees. I actually, a lot of homeless people come by and I let them volunteer and they help out and they'll help me clean up and organize and stuff. So I don't have employees, no, I only have volunteers.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? I got Seth and Indra. Seth?
Thanks, Connor. Yeah, on that subject of the nonprofit, so are you operating at a loss as a nonprofit, or is the extra income that you may be generating going towards a charitable? I'm just kind of trying to figure that out.
What was the question? Am I operating it as a loss at a nonprofit?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And then, as a nonprofit, a 501c3, correct?
Yes.
Do you have a board of directors?
Yes.
How many is on the board? I'm just curious.
4.
Okay.
Further questions? I got Indra.
So I'm wondering, how did it occur, did you try to resolve this dispute with Republic First?
Yeah, well, despite, or not counting the multiple solid waste agency meetings that I tried, that I've been to the whole past year, I emailed Republic Services prior to this hearing, and I let them know, you have a chance to lift the ban on me right now. These are the exemptions. You can lift the ban right now, and we can avoid this hearing. So yeah. Also, the other thing is, the city has the right and the authority to enforce the contract, not the contractor. It's the city's job to ban people from the dump if they're violating the contract. It's not their job to decide who gets to use the city-owned property.
Okay, can I?
Yep.
And so how did you come to their attention? Like, do you go every day, every week? Were you going so often that they noticed you? Why?
I haven't been to Republic Services transfer station in over 5 years, but yes, and this was back when I first started my business over 5 years ago, and I used to have a magnet on the side of my truck that said junk removal, and then at first they said, hey, you got to take that magnet off, you can't be advertising that you're doing that, and so I took the magnet off and I kept going, and then finally what the Republic Service worker told me at the time is he said, hey, the city's cracking down on us, we can't let you dump here, and that's what I was told, and then I got a call from the sheriff telling me I was no trespass from the facility, which is odd, because I never committed a crime, and it's a public property owned by the city. So yeah, I brought too much trash to the dump, I guess you could say. I brought a suspicious amount of trash that they assumed I was hauling trash for someone else.
How often were you going?
Probably a couple times a week.
Okay, and in your thrift store services, do you ever go to properties and just pick up trash, or is it always items?
So no, yeah, and so if as a licensed contractor I ever get a call that there's a property full of trash, I order a dumpster and we do that. And actually, that reminds me, there was actually a specific job I went out and I quoted, because also, as a contractor, if you have a house that's hoarded full of stuff, there's trash everywhere in the house, you can't even bid that remodel until everything is out of the house. And so I went and I looked at this job and I said, you got probably, I told him I think it was 60 yards of trash. I said, we're gonna need 2 30-yard dumpsters from SOS. And I told him we're gonna have to order them from SOS and they'll probably be able to get them here on Monday or whatever. And he got back to me and he said, hey, sorry, I'm going with someone else. They are going to throw all the trash in their trailer and haul it straight to the dump, and they can get started right away. So I've actually lost out on business because I follow the franchise agreement. I could have told them, yeah, I'll be there right there, and I'll load my box trucks. But because it was straight garbage, and it was more volume than I had the capacity for in my dumpster, I told them we're going to have to rent a dumpster from SOS because we were in SOS's area. And so, yes, if there is that situation, I know the rules. I know that trash, I can't haul trash, well, except for according to that new exemption. And that's why I have a dumpster at my thrift store. The trash I put in my Republic Services dumpster. That's what I'm supposed to do. At many solid waste agency meetings, they said if you remove trash from someone else, it needs to go in a Republic Services dumpster. It doesn't matter where that dumpster is, if it's at my site or the customer's site. So I operate the way I'm supposed to operate. And so one thing is, and that's, so say I'm doing land clearing and there's a pile of blackberry bushes and I need to clear that, I'm clearing the land. And then I start moving the blackberry bushes and then there's a pile of garbage under the blackberry bushes. That's common. So then I would have to stop and say, hey, you guys are gonna have to order a dumpster in, and then we will have to put this garbage into the dumpster, and I can only take the blackberry bushes. But because I have a dumpster at my thrift store, if it's a small enough amount, I can say, hey, no worries, I can take this and put it in my dumpster. And that's the issue, and so I operate within the franchise agreement, but there are situations when, like I tried to put a couch in my dumpster, and now that couch is still next to my dumpster. And so I don't know the point of the exemptions if they aren't going to be honored, and I don't think that they get to pick and choose where they honor the exemptions.
Okay, I have a couple more questions if I could, just specifically. So what you're saying, what you take to the landfill or to their station is the reusable stuff. You don't take the trash there. Is that what you're saying?
It would be the reusable stuff that I have deemed
Right.
are not going to be worth repairable, repairing or reusing.
Which could be trashy.
Well, so, and that's the thing is I accept more donations than other thrift stores do because I give back to people who don't have much. So like UCAN calls me and they say, hey, we just got someone into housing. Can they come to your store and furnish their house? And then the people come to my store and I give them whatever they need for their house for free and I don't charge them for it.
And you brought up one more. You brought up the land clearing. So what's your understanding, this was not clear to me, what's your understanding of, it says land clearing only in connection with planned development? So when you're talking about land clearing blackberries or just clearing property, what's your understanding of what they mean by that?
Are you talking about the section 2.87?
I'm not sure what section, sorry.
Where it
But
says the connect.
Here, well, it's on this slide, or in connection with land clearing and development.
So for my pile of blackberries example, say someone has, a field on the side of the house, but there's a pile of blackberries in it. We need to clear that land and make it flat before they can then develop and build on it. That's my understanding of land clearing the land for development.
So the land clearing is in connection with development?
Yeah, in those instances.
Gray area? I don't
And then there's also the demolition, which this happens all the time. There's an old broken down shed that is a liability to the property owner and they need it torn down. Sometimes there's garbage in those sheds. Sometimes there's repairable, cleanable discards. There's old tools and stuff. And that's kind of where the dual entity comes in. My thrift store, I save the old tools and I put them in my store. I put the trash in the dumpster, but then when I have the construction debris, I should be able to haul that to the land or to the transfer station. And why am I personally not allowed to do that, but any other contractor is allowed to do that? I understand what I can and can't haul.
Further questions? I got Seth and then Victoria. Seth?
Yeah, I was just curious why just Republic Services? I mean, I know, I think in the past, Southern Oregon Sanitation has come up. I just saw a letter come in through our email today from Douglas County. So why just Republic in this instance?
I mean, if you're going to go fight two people, you would rather fight two people or one person. And no, also the real main reason, Southern Oregon Sanitation owns the property that they operate on. They own the property that they operate on Redwood Avenue. Republic Services leases that property from the city of Grants Pass. So to me, that's why I chose only Republic Services, because the city of Grants Pass has an obligation more so than a private business owner protecting. For all I know, SOS has the right to refuse service to anyone, but when you're using city property to provide a public service, then that's my reasoning for only. And I would be interested if you got an email from Douglas County. Can you forward me that? Because I have never received anything from Douglas County.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I was curious on the 2.8.7, I mean, I kind of get where you're coming at, but, I've read it, and, I mean, it's clear to me that it's a contractor that is doing the job, the demolition, the construction, that then has the right to take their materials to the dump and get rid of it, right? So you're not actually doing the construction.
Why would you say that? I am. I do physically. I am a licensed contractor. I do the construction. I do the remodel. I am, yes.
I mean, I guess if you are, yeah, then that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm telling you guys that I do that. I am a contractor, and I do do that. And I would like to be able to do what every other contractor does.
So it seems like this is very nuanced. It feels like there's areas where it could be an exemption, and there's areas where it's probably not. I mean, based on what you're saying. I'm just trying to understand, I've read through it. What is your ultimate goal? I mean, you got the nonprofit, you've got the for-profit side of it. What are you trying to ultimately do. I mean, I understand, you know, there's probably times when you have the license, so you are doing work, and that makes sense. But then, again, it's nuanced, right? And you said there's people that are out there probably doing it, under disguise, right? They're not being truthful, and that's the nature of the world we live in. But yeah, so I don't know, it's tough.
I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but you reminded me, there's also currently in Grants Pass peer-to-peer junk removal services that are in violation of this franchise agreement. You can go on Load Up, say, hey, I need a couch removed, and then anyone with a truck can sign up, and then they're violating this franchise agreement without these exemptions. I think I misunderstood your question about what's my ultimate goal. I think my goal is to not have to drive over an hour to go to a dump. I was actually my ultimate goal is to get Southern Oregon where we need to be as far as reducing, reusing, and recycling actually being our state's solid waste hierarchy and not just a slogan. I was at the Lane County transfer station just yesterday, and they operate the way a transfer station should operate. They have trailer from St. Vincent de Paul. You can stop and unload your donations first. They have building material, another nonprofit that does building material. You unload building materials that can be reused. They have the mattress recycling, which I provide solely for Josephine County. And those transfer stations are operated by Lane County. They aren't operated by these private monopolies who profit more from landfilling.
So let's say somebody has a property that wants to remove junk. You're not doing construction, you're not doing anything like that, right? Strictly just wants to remove, trash, junk, things around the property. So you could hypothetically charge them, right, to go there, remove that, but then bring in a Republic Services dump bin or Southern Oregon Sanitation, right, to the property, put it in there, pay their fee, they remove it, right? Is that an option?
Yes, and that is what I do if there is large volumes of trash. But usually when I do a clean out, it's 10% trash, 90% repairable, cleanable discards. Because, if you think about someone died and now the inheritors need to remove all those items from that house, they didn't just live amongst trash. It was all their stuff that they now need to get rid of. And then that's where the nonprofit comes in and the sorting comes in. And that's where we sort through, and I fill my dumpster every week with the trash. But sometimes I have large items that don't fit in the dumpster, and I would like to be able to access the city-owned transfer station like everyone else.
Okay.
Further questions? I got Victoria, and then Rob. Victoria?
So your issue is with them not giving you the ability from your perspective of being a licensed contractor and not being able to dispose of like every other contractor. Are you separating this from your issues at the nonprofit side? So do you understand why they wouldn't take some items in a dumpster at your nonprofit? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I understand the distinct separate things that each separate entity can haul, if that was your question. I understand that my contract as a licensed contractor, I am only allowed to haul the construction or demolition debris that I generate. I should be allowed to haul that to the transfer station as a licensed contractor. And as a nonprofit thrift store, I should be able to haul the repairable or cleanable discards that at whatever point I deem are no longer worth the floor space in my store and they need to go to the dump. So both of my separate entities should be able to haul two separate sets of materials, if that makes sense.
Do you think that they believe that you might be like mixing and matching these, and so that's why they think it's kind of, do you understand that is what they're saying, or no?
Their beliefs are irrelevant to the exemptions that are in the contract.
But what would you say then? Are you mixing up the contractor and the nonprofit? I guess
no,
you've said no.
Are you saying, like, hypothetically, if I were going to take a load to the dump, would it be a mixture of the repairable, cleanable discards and the construction debris? The answer is no. I would specifically And to avoid that confusion, to your point, I specifically separate those to make sure that there isn't that confusion. So my licensed contractor would be hauling the demolition debris, and then the nonprofit entity would be hauling the repairable or cleanable discards. So yes, yes, I understand what you're saying, and I would not plan to bring mixed loads. I see what you're saying about how that could confuse them if I was allowed to go to the dump, and then they would be like, well, wait, who is this coming from, the nonprofit or the contractor? Yes, I would make sure to have separate loads, separate entities hauling the separate items, which I go above and beyond to fit within this franchise agreement. Yeah, it's funny that we have the Small Business Task Force going on right now, because this is kind of one of those ridiculous regulations that kind of tries to shut down small businesses.
And then my last question is, as you brought up just things that you didn't like about this franchise agreement and things that you believe that they do wrong, why is that important for your case here tonight?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question.
Well, I just don't know your exemptions. What do your exemptions have to do with violations that you say this franchise is committing? Just in your speech, there was a section of your speech where you're saying they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this. It seemed like you didn't like that they did. What bearing does that have on your case here about your exemptions?
I'm not sure if I'm following. I don't like that they ban people from the dump. I mean, Jason could probably tell you how many illegal haulers they've banned in the past year. It's over 10. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but I don't like that this franchise agreement allows for them. I don't like that the franchise agreement gives the haulers, the unilateral authority to ban people without cause or reason. I think if they want to ban someone, they should bring it to the city council or bring it to the solid waste agency and say, hey, we want to ban this guy because he's bringing other people's trash to us, or whatever they want to do. So I'm not sure if that answered your question or not, or I'm not sure if you were referring to when I mentioned what's going on in Coffin Butte, because that was just, is that what you're referring to?
I believe so.
Okay, yeah, so that was separate but related. Up in Coffin Butte, Republic Services owns that landfill up there. They're under DEQ enforcement right now for failing to monitor 92% of their gas leaks. They're emitting 200 times the amount of methane gas that is legally allowed. So that just goes to their credibility as an organization and their care about the communities that they operate in over profit.
So I think the ultimate question was, why did you even talk about that? Because it's not necessarily relevant to your complaint.
Well, and I had brought that up. Jason mentioned that I thought that Republic managed the post-closure of the Merlin landfill, but Jason let me know that the city operates that. So I'm hoping that the city does much better monitoring than Republic does of their landfill.
Okay. Further questions? I got Rob, and then Joel and Seth. Rob?
Yeah, this is a difficult position for a council to be in, but we did sign up for it. I guess what makes it difficult is, as Seth mentioned, there's a lot of nuance. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot of rebuttal from Republic. They're here tonight. And there's a lot of information that, even though I did most of my reading over the weekend, a lot more information came in today. So, it's hard to digest it all on the fly. But I guess what I think, if I understand what you, one of the issues that you have, I think the words you may have been looking for was due process. In other words, when you get to or when someone gets to the dump or the landfill or whatever, it seems as though you're saying that it shouldn't be up to the monopoly holder or the franchisee to be judge, jury, and executioner. They're deciding kind of unilaterally whether or not they, from your appearance of your truck or whatever, they're deciding whether or not it's appropriate for you or it isn't appropriate for you. So there's no due process there. And I guess that's kind of what you're seeking.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, and also, I mean, there could be as much or as little nuance here as you want there to be. Section 2.89, I'll just read this. The transportation of solid waste by persons engaged in the cleanup of property for the purpose of abiding a judicial order, preparing the property for sale, abating nuisances, or eliminating hazardous conditions. So if someone has trash on their property and they're trying to list that property for sale, I am allowed to transport that solid waste. I don't even need to use a Republic Services dumpster. If you can all just read that exemption right there, that is what I do. I help people prepare their properties for sale by abating the nuisances and eliminating the hazardous conditions that exist on the properties before they can sell them.
Right. I guess part of what I'm talking about with, you included a lot in your presentation, and some of it I don't necessarily understand. So on the one hand, you have a dumpster on your property. Theoretically, Republic comes around and services that dumpster, and pretty much anything in that dumpster is appropriate for them to cart away. But yet you mentioned something about you putting a couch in the dumpster and they won't take that. Okay, so I don't understand. And then what are you supposed to do with that if you're not, are you then not allowed to take that to the transfer station yourself as a reusable item? That's clearly was a reusable item, a couch. They won't allow it in the dumpster, and then they're also not allowing you to take it to the transfer station as well?
And that is correct, yes, and that is why it's a violation of the exemption.
So it would seem as though one or the other, they should either be allowed to be in your dumpster, or clearly you should be allowed to take it to the transfer station, I guess, is what I'm gleaning from that. Would you agree with that?
Yes, the latter. I should 100% be allowed to take it to the transfer station.
Okay, so thank you. So on this other exemption that you just became aware of, the 2.8.9, explicitly protects property cleanup and nuisance abatement from franchise. That to me would be, I'm just reading that on face value, and somebody could correct me, whether it's Jason or the franchise holder, when it explicitly protects property cleanup and nuisance abatement from franchise requirements. I read that as saying that pretty much anything that you're doing in your line of work would be an exclusion, or it would be an exemption, I should say. As you're saying, property cleanup is what you do. That doesn't necessarily say whether it's reusables. It could be garbage. It could be biological waste. It could be a lot of things, I guess, from that 2.8.9. What do you take that to mean? Could it be anything, literally? Garbage or whatever? Because that's the way I'm reading it.
Almost anything. I mean, if something is causing someone a nuisance, that could be 2 trash bags on the side of their house that's making flies come into their house. So yes, I agree with your interpretation of that, and that's what makes this ban even more concerning.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so just a couple of other things. Did I hear you say that it's been 5 years since you've been to the dump? You said something about 5 years, and I didn't follow that.
It's been over 5 years since I've been to any transfer station in Josephine County. I've been hauling to other counties for over 5 years.
Okay, so why have you avoided the transfer stations in Josephine County?
I have been banned and no trespassed.
Even without being there in 5 years?
Yes, I tried to go to Southern Oregon Sanitation when I got my contractor's license with a load of demolition debris. At that point, I was no trespass from the facility.
And that was 5 years ago?
No, that was just, that most recent one was just this past year, I believe, because I just only got my contractor's license just over the past year or so. So yeah, after I got my contractor's license and I knew that I fully, no questions asked, qualified for that exemption, I said, okay, great, I can go to the dump, I can take this demolition debris to the dump. And I tried, and they issued a no trespass on me for trying to do my contractor's job and fit within the exemptions of the franchise agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? I got somebody that wants to weigh in here. Go ahead, Stephanie.
I just wanted to provide some potential clarification regarding 2.8.9. My understanding on this is that it has to do with it's that abiding a judicial order. That's referencing the judicial orders to clean up properties that have been determined to be nuisances under the legal definitions. So it would be abating legal nuisances and eliminating hazardous conditions as defined by the law, not just that somebody thinks it's a nuisance on their own property.
Thank you, Stephanie. Further questions? I got Joel, Seth, Indra, and Rick. So Joel?
Thank you, Stephanie, for that. I just got 3 questions. We got everything in front of us here. Connor, do you transport solid waste while engaged in the cleanup of property for the purposes of abiding a judicious order, preparing the sale for property, abating nuisances, and it's not and, it's or, the way it's written, it's not and, it's or, eliminating hazardous conditions. Do you do that?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, then under 2.8.7, on your contractor's license, do you haul waste created with demolition, construction, or remodeling of a building or structure, or in conjunction with land clearing and development that you have generated on your construction, on the contractor's construction site, and you own the equipment that hauls it to the dump?
Yes, sir, I do.
Do you do anything else besides those 2 things and hauling stuff to the dump? And you got the the trash bin that Republic hauls for you. Do you do anything outside of those 2?
I do have my nonprofit thrift store as well, which I haul the repairable and cleanable discards for reuse.
Okay, so, okay, thank you.
Further questions? I got Seth.
Yeah, so you got banned 5 years ago, you said, roughly?
It might even be 6 now.
Okay. Why was that?
Because I allegedly hauled trash to the dump that allegedly did not belong to me.
Okay. So then you got your CCB first licensed last April. So, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like this whole thing could be you trying to kind of ask for forgiveness in a sense. Because you got banned 6 years ago, so you were doing something you shouldn't have been doing, according to the agreement. You didn't have a CCB then. You recently got it within the last year. So now you're maybe trying to restart in a sense from the point of you got a CCB.
Seems pretty clear cut to me.
I mean, it's actually kind of the opposite. I started a business. I had no idea about this franchise agreement. Once this franchise agreement was brought to my attention, I did everything possible to fit within those exemptions. I mean, I don't think anyone thinks it's against the law to provide dump runs and to do dump runs for people. There's 20 other companies in town that do that. So it's not common knowledge. This franchise agreement and the exclusive right to haul trash isn't necessarily common knowledge. I would say it's actually the opposite to your statement. When Jason brought this franchise agreement to my attention 5 years ago, I studied it and I said, okay, what do I need to do to make sure that I am not violating this agreement? How do I need to operate my business to make sure that I am fully compliant with all local regulations and state mandates? So yeah, I think actually the opposite.
Well, you would have been violating 2.8.7, right? You would have, 6 years ago, hypothetically speaking, you would have been violating 2.8.7 at that point in time on that specific topic because you didn't have a CCB license, right? I mean, that's you have.
Oh yeah, when they originally banned me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I had at the time I wasn't knowingly violating their franchise agreement. Also, Section 8.4 states, neither party shall be relieved of its obligation to comply with any of the provisions of this agreement by reason of any failure of the other party to enforce prompt compliance. Failure to enforce prompt compliance shall not constitute a waiver of any right or benefit under this agreement. So just because the exemptions haven't been acknowledged previously doesn't mean they don't still need to be acknowledged.
This is kind of, I mean, it's still somewhat related to this, but so hypothetically, if you were to get exemptions granted, would this apply to your property on, what is it, Fruitdale River Highway in terms of, you know, removing debris from that property? You know, I've had people talk to me about that property specifically. I would assume, I don't know off the top of my head, that there's code violations happening right now. I live in that ward. I drive by it frequently. I'm just curious, you know, I looked at Google reviews. A lot of people said the same thing. So I'm curious on that front.
Yes, definitely, and that would be hopefully a reason the city would grant these exemptions, because like I had mentioned, the couch that I tried to put in the dumpster that's now been sitting by the dumpster for a week. So yes, exactly. Yes, definitely.
Further questions? I got Indra and Rick and Rob. Indra?
I'm going to head in a little bit different direction because you mentioned discrimination. And so then you mentioned about 10 maybe have been banned from the dump. I don't know why. We don't have to get into that. But are you, why do you think there's discrimination? Are they not allowing you but allowing other business owners who do the same thing to do that? Are you aware of any specific practices like that? And then also,
sorry.
there was a note that the employees were referring customers to your competitors, but your competitors would do the same thing you do, correct? So can you elaborate on that?
So yeah, I actually called Republic Services months ago, and I said, hey, if I need to get a dumpster from you guys, but I can't physically fill it myself, will you guys send your guys out to fill that dumpster for me? And they said, no, we don't do that. And I said, okay, well then what should we do? And they said, you should call a junk removal company, and the junk removal company will come in their truck, and they will load the items in their truck, and they will haul the items to the transfer station. Because everywhere else, there are junk removal services. It's an entire industry. So that is what Republic Services call center recommended, because their call center is in Arizona. It's not local here, which I believe is also a violation of the franchise agreement. I believe they're supposed to have a local call center here. But anyway, so yes, when you call Republic Service, and maybe they reprimanded that individual, and they said, if anything's from Grants Pass, you have to say that you can't recommend junk removal service if they're in Grants Pass. But they had the zip code, they knew where I was located, and they recommended junk removal service, which is me. If you Google junk removal, you'll come with my phone number. So that was what that was about. What was your previous, or the other part of the question?
But as far as you know, are there junk removal services here that are allowed to go there?
Yes, there are. I mean, there are multiple that are just maybe not banned yet, but they're advertising weekly all the time that they're still providing services. So there are multiple services operating. Whether or not they've been banned yet by both dumps, I don't know, because I don't operate the dumps. There's one other company that actually operates within the exemptions, and I think they're the only one that actually operates within the exemptions. U-Turn for Christ has a thrift store. They do the repairable, cleanable discards, and they are also a licensed contractor, and they also do clean-out work, and they fit explicitly within these exemptions, just like I do. Another thing that they do, which I am trying to do, which I will be doing, multiple organizations can go out to public land, clean up trash from public property, and then haul that illegally dumped trash into the dump and pay to dispose of that trash. Anyone can do that, right? There's multiple organizations that will go do that, and then they'll also ask for donations to cover for those costs. So I asked Jason, I said, so if I clean up trash from public property, there's a pile of illegally dumped trash somewhere, I want to go help clean up Devil's Slide. Am I allowed to bring that trash to the transfer station like everyone else? And he said, no, because of the ban, I would have to have a government contract, which I do have a government contract. The Board of County Commissioners approved a $68,000 economic development grant for my company, and part of that was that I would clean up 15 cubic yards of trash from public land every month. So I do have a government contract to clean up trash from public property, and somehow I'm still may not be allowed to go to the dump. I would like the council to explain why anyone cleaning up trash from public property would not be allowed to bring it to the dump.
Further questions? I got Rick and then Rob. Rick?
So Connor, you talk about this sofa, and I just wanted to go through that scenario again. So if the person's 90 years old, they have a sofa and it's totally ripped apart because they had dogs and cats on it, they want it to go to the dump, how do they get it there?
They call me, or what are you saying? They can't. It sits in their house forever. Or they can rent a big 30-yard dumpster that might fit the dimensions, and then they can hope that they might find someone that can then pull that out and put it into the dumpster for them, which is hard when you ban companies from doing this work. Who are they going to call to do that work of putting that couch into that dumpster for that person?
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? I got Rob.
Yeah, you're covering all the big picture items, and I appreciate that. And and a lot of the details as well. There's a detail in our packet that I guess was deemed worthy enough to put in the packet, I guess by staff, where they, on page 22, I guess and you touched on it as well. There was a business that was getting ready for a grand opening, and I guess it says that I guess it comes from an online post attributed to you. I was there this morning clearing up all the extra trash that wouldn't fit in their dumpster. So in that situation, and I think you may have said that you put it in your truck and you took it away. So in that situation, was what you did that day, was that improper?
No, not at all, because I brought that trash or recyclable material to a different Republic Services dumpster. It was, first of all, that stuff was all cardboard that should have been going into a cardboard dumpster anyway. Republic should have dropped them off a cardboard dumpster, not just a trash dumpster. But anyway, it went to my thrift store to a cardboard dumpster to be recycled by Republic Services. So that, just because I was able to move it from the parking lot to a Republic Services dumpster, that was more efficient, and that helped the customer, and that didn't violate the franchise agreement, versus Republic having to go then send another separate truck out with a 5-yard dumpster to drop off for them to then put that stuff in. It was their opening day. They called me with an emergency pickup saying they needed this gone for opening day. And so no, that's not a violation of the franchise agreement to remove stuff from one property and put it into a dumpster on a different property.
Thank you.
Further questions? Anybody else? All right, thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
At this point, we will have Republic Services step up.
A little bit. Good evening, Mayor Scherf, City Council members, and staff. I'm Julie Jackson. I'm the Municipal Manager for Republic Services. And I'm here tonight to represent Republic Services in the appeal requested by Mr. Kirkpatrick. In addition to the staff report, which summarizes the issue, I think, fairly, we have submitted a formal letter that highlights our position of the appeal as well. The first thing I'd like to point out is that we do not believe Mr. Kirkpatrick has satisfied the conditions to request an appeal. Yes, when we pointed that out, he did send an email to our general manager on February 2nd, just 2 days ago, and it wasn't an attempt to resolve the issue. It was a demand to lift the ban. So we don't really see that as trying to resolve the issue. We haven't had a phone call from him trying to resolve the issue, or a letter or an email, but we did receive that demand on February 2nd, just 2 days ago. We do not believe that this was a good faith attempt to actually resolve any issue. He says he qualifies under 2 separate exemptions, but the charitable organization exemption is very clear in that you need to be hauling reusable, repairable discards. We don't think taking truckloads to a transfer station or a landfill constitutes a good faith attempt to be taking reusable and repairable items. The couch that he talks about may have been in okay shape, or it may not. I don't know, and I wouldn't attempt to guess that. But he does talk about having a dumpster. The reason that he couldn't put that couch in the dumpster is because it doesn't fit within that dumpster. So when we come to empty a dumpster with huge things sticking out of them, we can't empty them. So an easy solution would have been for him to call and ask for a bulk pickup. We could come pick up a couch at the curb at any time. So we don't think that he fits within that. exemption. We don't think taking truckloads to a transfer station for disposal to be thrown away fits that exemption. And there are lots of other, we work with thrift stores all over the state, really, and this is really not something that most thrift stores are concerned with or that they use that exemption. What we're really talking about is hauling waste, and Mr. Kirkpatrick advertises as a junk hauler. So a junk hauler is somebody who we would anticipate is hauling trash or materials that need to be, could be that they're going to be separated, but when you have those materials that need to go to a landfill, that's the part of the franchise that we don't think he qualifies for. The second is 2.8.7, which discusses contractors. And while he may be a contractor, the scope of the contracting work is really specifically defined in that clause. And the materials need to be materials generated by the primary work of the contractor. So your primary job cannot be hauling anything. That's the part you can't do. The primary work needs to be the demolition. If there were demolition, that would need to come in with a profiled by a third-party vendor. It would need to be profiled, and we would need to know that it was free of asbestos and all of the other regulations that we comply with DEQ for. We have not seen that happen. If he were a landscape contractor and he came in with just a load of landscaping organic material, that would be okay, but that's not what we've seen. We do not go looking for these folks. We know there are a lot of them out there, and we don't go out looking for them, but when they become a problem, when it becomes obvious to us that they're violating the franchise, that's the only time we really would take action. I think he's currently and knowingly violating the franchise. We do believe that there's work he can do that doesn't violate the franchise, that works within the franchise. Having a thrift store, taking reusable items is fine with us. Picking up reusable items is fine with us. One of the things you may not be aware of is that he's also been banned from Southern Oregon Sanitation Transfer Station, Dry Creek Landfill, the Douglas County Landfill, and the Waste Connections Transfer Station. So it isn't just us. We're not singling anyone out. He has been banned by all these other locations as well. We're willing to meet with him and discuss, for example, the mattress issue. We understand that he's involved with the mattress EPR program. We're also talking with the state mattress EPR program, and it could be that we can collect those, or the mattresses that are part of this program, without getting too technical, there are program mattresses that have to be collected if you're a part of that program. And then he's paid for the mattresses that can be recycled. We'd be willing to talk to him and work out some sort of an arrangement with that. But once again, he hasn't come to us to talk about those issues. I want to touch on the Bath and Body Works issue because the dumpster he's talking about was a cardboard dumpster that was way overloaded. So one of the things that is incumbent upon franchise haulers, we work very, very closely with DEQ. And one of the things that's incumbent upon franchise haulers is to make sure that we do education and outreach with our customers, that when they have a box, in this case that was very contaminated, that particular company, we have that problem all over the state, I will say. They want to have a dumpster for cardboard, but it's filled with trash. Typically plastic bags and all kinds of things that can't be recycled. This one should have had just cardboard, and it was contaminated. So we told them they had to unload that, and that's when they called him. And they called him because he advertises as a junk hauler. So I think all of those things let you know that he violated the franchise. As a part of DEQ's Recycling Modernization Act, which went into effect July 1st, contamination reduction is really an important component. And you're going to be hearing a lot more about trying to keep that recycling clean, trying to keep that cardboard dumpster clean. And so that was a part of the issue with that. As was said, we don't operate or own or maintain the Merlin landfill, so that one is sort of a moot point. Basically, we believe that the franchise benefits the municipalities throughout Oregon. We think about 95% of the state is franchised, and for good reason. It gives cities and counties the ability to regulate services and regulate rates. We also partner with city and counties by contributing funds to not only the general fund, but the environmental fund here contributes to grants throughout the community that go for solid waste issues. So in general, I mean, I think we support him working in the areas that the franchise allows. We're just asking him to stop hauling waste.
Thank you. Bring it back to council for questions. Rob.
So when you mentioned that his businesses or he has been banned at a number of different transfer stations, who was that ban done by? Who banned him?
The operators or owners of those facilities.
Okay, so it wasn't adjudicated in court?
No.
There was no official body? It was just, there was no due process? There was just
Correct.
a person who kind of went, that doesn't really fit with what we think. Are there pictures taken at that point? Is there any evidence taken at that point, or just?
Well, I could only speak for Republic Services.
Okay.
So I don't
when
know
you've
the
banned
answer
them,
to that.
have you photographed indiscretions, or have you taken them to court or anything like that?
It's been 5 years since we allowed him at the transfer station. We know that there have been loads that come in that somebody else hauls in for him. The famous case of his mother bringing a truckload of trash in has been discussed at the solid waste meetings. But, so no, we don't have anything because it's been a long time. But he did used to have these advertisements on the side of the truck, and it became obvious that that's what was happening.
Thank you.
Sure.
Further questions? I got Rick, Victoria, Kathleen, Joel. Rick?
Thank you, Julie. So on that couch situation with the 90-year-old, and the couch has
Yeah.
been totally trashed, and she's unable to get it out of her house, can she call you up and say, I have a couch that just needs to be taken to the dumper? What's the proper procedure for that situation?
So, while we wouldn't come in the house to get a couch. He is correct about that. But I think you would do what most people do. You do what I do. You have a friend or a family member or a neighbor or somebody haul that couch to the curb for you, and then we would come and pick it up.
Okay, thank you.
So we do, and they're called bulky pickups. We do bulky pickups at the curb all the time.
Victoria?
So your issue at Republic is just, tell me if I'm right, is just repeated infractions of hauling junk. But you would but you are fine if it is within his new contractor's license. Is that correct? So there's a way that he could come back and do Republic?
Sure, there is a way that he could come back. He would need to follow the rules, however. So, as you know, 5 years ago, he didn't have a contractor's license. And it became pretty clear to us that he was hauling trash. So, if that situation has changed, the franchise itself tells you that he has a process to come and try to resolve that with us. If that doesn't happen, he can always come to the solid waste agency or back to the council. But yeah, of course, we're not going to say never. Not ever would we say that. But you've got to follow the rules.
So if he were to come to you to say, here's my license, but that has not, you would say, okay, and here's the rules or whatever, and that has not happened since?
Correct.
Mr. Kirkpatrick has had his contractor's license. Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Further questions? I got Kathleen.
I was just wondering how much DEQ regulates your, what you can take and can't take.
Significantly. So DEQ regulates not only solid waste, which could be trash, what you would call household trash, but also recycling. So we are under a lot of obligation to follow the rules. For example, as I just mentioned, demolition debris needs to be profiled. We have to know if there's some kind of hazardous material in there. We have to know if there's asbestos, which is in many, many, many demolition loads. But we have to know those things going in. We haven't seen anything like that come in from him. So just demolition, we've turned people away here and in other places coming in with a demolition load that isn't manifested or isn't profiled because we don't know what's in it, and we are under obligation not to take those loads by DEQ. Recycling needs to be clean recycling. It can't be mixed with household trash or any other kind of trash. And
Now,
that's regulated by DEQ as well.
Now, there's been a lot of change with the recycling, so is that clear? Is he clear on what can be recycled and what can't be?
Well, I can't answer that for him. The bringing, so recycling is also part of the solid waste system. So recycling can be trash, it can be, solid waste can be trash that needs to be disposed of at a landfill or a transfer station, but it can also be recycling. All of that is covered under the solid waste system. So the franchise system doesn't allow for other people to haul that. But it does, with these very specific exemptions, allow him to haul reusable things. Lots of thrift stores go out to a household and they take what they can reuse, or they think they might be able to repair, or they might be able to resell or give away. But I think just to go out and take everything and then want to throw away, then want to haul what he can't use to a landfill or a disposal site is the part that we don't agree with.
Because some of it's maybe not acceptable to put in the landfill.
It might be if it's demolition material, but household discards would be. So I think the argument was I can't go into a house and I can't clean out the whole thing and throw away what I want to throw away and haul that myself and keep what I want to keep that could be reused. And I think the answer for most people, I've just been through this in the last year when my mother passed away, is that we hired somebody to come and do an estate sale, and they sold what they could sell, and then we called a couple of thrift stores to come out and take what they wanted to take and what they thought they could reuse or repair, and then we got a dumpster and we put the rest of the material in it. And I think that's the proper way to do this. Sure.
All right, further questions? I got Joel and then Indra. Joel?
Well, first off, I appreciate the franchise and what it does for our community. I'm just dealing with the words and what's written on paper. And do you consider junk waste and waste junk?
Yes, I think industry-wide across the country it is.
So he can haul junk then, anybody can haul junk then under these two exceptions, because it talks about waste.
Sure.
I don't see anything in here that would disqualify him from qualifying under, let me read it to you, and then I need you to tell me why he wouldn't qualify.
Sure.
Hauling waste created in connection with the demolition, construction, or remodeling of a building or structure, or in connection with land clearing and development. There's no word primary in there. Such waste shall be generated by the contractor in connection with the contractor's construction site and hauled in equipment owned by the contractor. Second one, transportation of solid waste, junk, by persons engaged in the cleanup of property for the purpose of abiding a judicious order, preparing the property for sale, abating nuisances, or eliminating hazardous conditions.
So I think
now what disqualifies him from those words?
Well, I think,
and I'm not talking about primary.
Nope,
I'm not talking about junk versus waste.
Nope, me either. So let's go back to the last one you mentioned, because I think when you put that word "or" in there, there are a couple ways to look at that.
No, I didn't put it in there. It's in there.
When you read it, there are a couple ways to look at that. So
no, or is or. It's on paper.
It is, but I think the first part of that sentence tells you what he can do, and then he can do it for this or this.
Or
But the
this
first part
or
of the
this,
sentence
correct.
tells you there needs to be a judicial order.
Right.
We have certainly not seen anyone come in with a judicial order from one of his companies. So
Under that, I don't see where that's required. It says or.
I
mean, or is pretty specific. If it said and,
Yep.
that would be different.
Well, I will tell you that I didn't have our legal team go over that one because he did not bring that up and use that as one of his exemptions.
I'm just talking
So
about
we can
what
certainly
you're
come
doing
back
here.
to that. But
Yeah.
but I'm saying that the first part of that sentence tells you it needs to be part of a judicial order. And I think that's what that's intended to mean.
It says or, ma'am.
It does. Yeah,
Okay.
but you and I are reading that or differently. We're putting a comma in a different place. Yeah. And then you asked, do you want me to answer the second part of that first?
I'm sorry?
You asked a first question, and that was about
Well, I just wonder
the
why.
contractor piece of it.
Why he wouldn't fit there from your perspective. And what I heard was, it was primary, it was waste instead of junk. I heard that it was, it wasn't a primary I don't see the word primary in here. I don't see where you looked at this statute objectively and applied it to his situation.
Well, because I'm not a lawyer, I didn't rely just on myself, but we did have our legal team take a very close look at it, and they felt that it was very specific that he did not meet that contractor piece of it, because you need to be...
What was the logic that they were using?
Well, because you need to be, the waste needs to be generated by you, meaning I'm building a house and I can haul away the trash at the end of the day from building that house. I'm a demolition contractor and
So
I
that's
can...
2.8.7.
Yep.
Under 2.8.9, it doesn't, it just says by persons engaged in the cleanup of property.
Well, that's a piece of that section. That's not all of that section. And I think a lot of the confusion comes, especially when we were at the Solid Waste Agency, from looking at just little pieces here and there out of the franchise
I'm
agreement.
looking
And we
at the
need to
whole
look
thing.
at the whole thing.
I'm looking at that whole section, ma'am.
Well, I think that that section with the or, this ambiguous or, really starts the sentence by saying it needs to be as a part of a judicial order. And then it describes how you do that under there. So we're going to disagree on how we're reading
It's
that.
judicial order, comma, next one, comma, next one, comma,
Mm-hmm.
or. And I don't know, maybe it was poorly written, but it's what we're dealing with.
I think
And
that's how
my English
we've
teacher would say
interpreted it.
it's, it can be one or the other. I mean, it's not an and.
Sure.
Further questions? I got Indra.
Yes, so you're making a big distinction between usable, reusable things versus trash. And so what comes to my mind is that old saying, one person's junk is another person's
Sure.
treasure. So how are you I can see if it's trash in a bag, with waste from food in your kitchen, but if it's items, are you trying to delineate between good used items and bad? Was that your point in what
We're
he
not.
was
We're
hauling?
trying to follow the franchise as it's written. And I think that reusable, repairable or reusable
Yeah.
discards is pretty clear. When a truck full of obvious trash comes in that doesn't have anything to repair or that somebody might want to use, then we're going to say that's trash. And I don't think we're trying to look at a blender that comes in a load and say, gosh, is this repairable or is it something that's trash? We just don't get down to that granular level. But when a truck full of something that's going to a landfill, that's solid waste and is trash, comes in, it's pretty obvious when it's not reusable or repairable material.
Okay, I wanted to make that
Yeah, but no,
distinction.
we're not looking at every load that comes in and with a magnifying glass and trying to make that distinction.
Okay, and then banned for 5 years so far. So when you ban people, are they banned for life? Do you talk to them about this is a
No.
temporary unless
Again,
you
if he had come to us at any point in that 5 years, this could have maybe been resolved at that point. But he didn't come to us ever during that 5-year period.
Okay, and that, I'm feeling like what you're saying here is that you're willing to work things out, and if he would have only come to you, maybe you could have worked things out. However, he stated he was at the solid waste, the meetings with you, correct? So did you ever talk to him? Did you ever reach out? Were there any words spoken?
After the first meeting, because as you know, he's chosen just to point out Republic Services, but there are many other organizations that he really is including in this topic. And so after that first meeting and his first presentation that I was aware of at the Solid Waste Agency, Trent Carpenter from Southern Oregon Sanitation did set up a meeting with him. And Trent said, I'll take a stab and we'll see if we can come up with some reasonable solution. And there was no reasonable solution that came out of that meeting. So yes, we reached out through Trent, but Trent knew that he was speaking for both of us. We had talked to him about that meeting. And we just didn't want to bombard him with lots and lots of people. So there was no resolution that came out of that.
Okay.
But have I personally reached out to him? No, and as he has not reached out to me.
Okay. And then I read all the minutes from the meetings, and you said, you're Julie, right?
I am Julie.
You said room exists for junk haulers in the current agreement. I read that in the minutes, so what do you mean by that?
I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have used the word junk haulers, but I think I said room exists. There's a lane for him to operate in as a part of the current agreement. I just think he's operating outside of that lane. And what I meant by that was, heck, if somebody calls and says, I've got a house full of furniture, come and get what you think you can reuse or repair. Absolutely fine. If he decides to become a landscape contractor, and he goes to clean out material, and he comes in with a load that is all organic material, because we have to have that separated. It can't be organic material mixed with trash. That's fine. There are jobs that he can do. It's just that he's working outside of that lane, and that's what we're asking him not to do.
So do you have any policies in Republic that if someone is banned, you send them communications that you're banned for this long? We're willing to, you can come back after a year and we'll see. Is there anything in your policies to remedy the situation?
In those cases, we typically rely on the jurisdiction and the franchise because that's who we're regulated by. So we rely on the franchise to determine what the next step would be. And I think the next step is pretty clear, that he can contact us, the hauler, to try to resolve the issue. And that didn't happen. And it hasn't happened. If he wants to contact us tomorrow to try to resolve the issue, we'll be happy to work with him. But to just say, go ahead and haul anything you want, that's the piece we're not going to say, go right ahead. But yeah, as I said,
you feel no responsibility even for 5 years, even when you're at meetings together?
I didn't know about him. I mean, no, do I feel no responsibility? No.
The company, not you personally.
Not. I think the answer is, it's not our job to reach out to people who are violating the franchise necessarily. He was told several times prior to being banned. So in that instance, we did reach out. But, I guess you could ask him the same question. Does he feel no responsibility to reach out and try to resolve the issue?
I'm just trying to understand it all.
I
So
know.
thank you for
It's a
your
complicated
explanations.
issue.
I
We
appreciate
do
it.
get that. We really do. We just are trying to protect the franchise because we're so much more regulated than, he's certainly not regulated by the franchise. We pay franchise fees. We pay into the environmental fee. We contribute probably $50,000 worth of cash and in-kind services in this community. We instituted a free tire take back on Earth Day, which we did last year and we'll be doing again this year. So we feel like we're really good community players and we want to continue to do that. And the franchise gives us sort of the assurance that we have this franchise business here and that we are going to do our part to be good partners in that franchise as well. So that's kind of where we're coming from.
Okay, we're going to go into further questions. I got Victoria and Rick, but before I do see some of our line of questioning kind of getting a little bit broad. We do need to keep our line of questioning to the topic at hand, which is basically you have a complainant that has a specific complaint on certain criteria within the franchise agreement. So we need to kind of keep that line of questioning discussion to those topics and not be so broad, or we're going to be here till like midnight. Next, I got Victoria and then Rick. Victoria? Oh, and then Joel after that. So Victoria first.
So I'm just needing to go through 2.8.9, 2.8.1, and 2.8.7. And from my understanding, when Stephanie read 2.8.9, Mr. Kirkpatrick would not be eligible for that exemption because it begins talking about under a judicial order, so it makes sense that the whole sentence is talking about a judicial order. And I just wondered if Stephanie could tell me if I'm thinking correctly there, to your best of your ability.
To the best of my ability, I know that that was the intention of that paragraph. I've heard that discussion. There may be some interpretation that could be done for that. Not really in the abating nuisances or eliminating hazardous conditions components, because those are more legal terms of art and not anything that's just you don't like it, that you personally find something hazardous on your property. It's intended for those properties where the court has said this property is a nuisance and a hazard, and therefore you have to clean this up. You're court ordered to do that. That's what the intention is for that exemption. It does, however, say preparing the property for sale, and that's the one that which is usually can be part of those court orders. But the question with the way it's written and for interpretation by counsel, I guess, to determine whether he's compliant with that exemption is whether that's supposed to be tied to the judicial order or not. But I know that that was the intention when that was written.
Yeah, and it just seems like, for me, I would not want to put myself in the place of determining it. I would just go with what it seems the law is saying. So so that just seems the right thing for me. It just doesn't seem like 2.8.9 is one that fits because of that. So then 2.8.7 is generated by the contractor, and since Mr. Kirkpatrick is now a contractor, at what point would...
I think she's getting to it.
Well, it's... Yeah, I'm talking
continue.
specifically about the exemptions.
Yeah, continue. I was answering a question over here.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay.
I might be able to help you with that a little bit.
Yeah, thank
you.
you.
In the waste industry, we talk about the generator of waste, and that wouldn't be the person cleaning it up. That would be the person who generates the waste, the homeowner, the family who owns the house, but the person who actually generates the waste.
Oh, I thought 2.8. Oh, that's 2.8.7. Apologize.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Oh, I was getting the two mixed up.
And so a contractor who's doing the work, bringing in wood and, I don't know what, sheetrock and all kinds of things, and doing that work is generating the pieces of sheetrock that they cut away and aren't using, or the wood that's been cut away. That's waste generated by that contractor. And I think that's the difference than going in and just cleaning things out of a house that was generated by someone else.
Yeah. So generated by a contractor is, it could be having to clean up, debris and stuff like that, but it would be in the process of taking something apart to rebuild it or do an addition or something like that. Is that what you mean?
Their primary job can't be hauling waste.
And is that the issue that you tended to see?
Yes.
It was the primary, okay. Is there
Thank you for putting that in perspective and clarifying that, yes.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. And so that was my thinking. Is there a way for a person with a contractor's license to be a junk hauler and to be able to come to Republic Services?
I think I'm gonna look at Trent. I mean, I think the answer is not within these franchise guidelines.
Okay, thank you. And so, so from your perspective, 2.8.7 doesn't fit with this particular kind of work?
Correct.
Okay. And then 2.8.1 is just waste that's generated by the elderly person example that we had earlier. So it's their waste, but they would need to have a big bin from Republic to put it into.
And 2.8.1 is the one that deals with reusable and repairable goods. And so a 501c3 charitable organization can come in and collect those materials. It's all the other stuff that they can't collect, but they can certainly take repairable and discardable or repairable discards or reusable discards.
Oh, but the issue then, it seems then 5 years ago, it seems like it wasn't just the repairable things, it was all the trash from that person's home.
Sure, if it was repairable or reusable, I don't know why a truckload of it would come to a transfer station to go to a landfill. That doesn't make sense to me.
Thank you.
Sure.
Further questions? I got Rick and then Joel.
So thank you, Julie. So going in that sofa, what would be the proper procedure if the 90-year-old had a destroyed sofa? He could go to her house, haul the sofa out to her front of the yard.
He could,
and
sure.
then call you to come pick it up?
If he's feeling charitable, he could go haul it to the curb and we could pick it up, sure.
Okay, so that'd be, all right, thank you.
I mean, that would be asking a lot of Mr. Kirkpatrick, I think, but.
Well, if he's paid for his services, I mean,
Sure.
the 90-year-old can't lift the couch. I mean, that's, okay.
Not most 90-year-olds I know, but
Okay.
you never know.
Two other questions. I think we had the issue of trash. If he finds trash but doesn't have an address, does DEQ require you, because of liability issues on hazardous material, to have an address for everything that comes to you?
For demolition material, we don't necessarily need an address, but we need some other information, like what year was the structure that was demolished built? You know, and that gives us some pretty big clues about the fact that there could be lead-based paint or asbestos or some of the things we have to know are coming in. And could possibly need to be disposed of differently or treated differently.
Okay, last question. On the dumpster that Connor has at his business, is when that business opened, was that large dumpster always there, or is that recent? Because
I don't know the answer to that.
Because my initial impression was the dumpster was not there, and therefore that he was then hauling from the business to the dump where you needed to have the dumpster complies with your requirements?
I don't know the answer to how long he's had it. I think your question is, how would we know if he was in fact hauling trash from a home where he also picked up reusable items and brought them back and put them in his dumpster? And the answer is we wouldn't. And we wouldn't really ask that question necessarily. He can have a dumpster at his business and he can put waste in that dumpster, and we don't generally ask customers where that's coming from unless, our trucks are getting to the point where we have cameras and we can look at what's dumped in. And if we can see sheetrock or something that we know we should ask questions about first, then we might ask questions, but that's a pretty rare occurrence. So I've just given him a way to get around the rules, but we wouldn't necessarily look in a dumpster and find somebody or ban them from having a dumpster, and we haven't done that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, further questions? I got Joel.
I first have a statement, then a question.
Sure.
Both are valuable commodities in our community. And you two have not talked. So my question is, as a judicial body, if they haven't talked, I feel we haven't given them a chance to resolve this issue, unless they don't want to talk. Why would it come before us before they have resolved it themselves? because you're both valuable members of our community. And for us then to pick winners and losers when you two haven't come together and tried to resolve the differences, I feel very uncomfortable with. My question is that a possibility in how we end this? Is that we require them to talk? If they still disagree, come back.
So you were given in your packet, the presentation from Jason there, you were given alternatives for actions, and basically you're looking at a complaint. Complaint is structured, has criteria to it, so you could make an action to say that the complaint is unfounded. You can uphold the complaint, or it's up to you. You're the judicial body. It's your power to do what you need to do.
Mayor?
Yes.
You'll also note that it does say that the date could be deferred. So you could pause and to a different date, and in the meantime, ask for additional work to be done before choosing one of those alternatives.
And there's that one too. All right, Joel, you good? Yeah. Okay, good. Victoria?
So I think I'm feeding off of what Joel said. We might have been thinking the same kind of thing at the same time. But I was thinking in terms of harm and remedy. And it seems to me like not just, I don't know if it's for us to determine here, but we know that you're not the only waste disposal service that has an issue. So it seems like there has been, from not just you, but other people, some perception of harm. Mm-hmm. And if you could describe that harm, just describe the harm to the franchise for us just a little bit. And then remedy, then I was going to say, it seems like a remedy you've already talked a little bit about, that you guys welcome him coming in and talking to you about what he could do, what he couldn't do.
Sure.
And so if you could talk about harm briefly and then remedy.
I think the harm to the franchise is if one person, one junk hauler, is allowed to work outside of the guidelines of the franchise, there won't be one. There'll be many, many, many of them who come in. You can buy a franchise for this online, and they certainly don't tell you when you buy this franchise online to do this that you better check with the community you work in to see if it's allowable or not. And I think that's really a disingenuous way to sell a business. But there are many ways that people think, hey, I could do that, or I've got a pickup and I could work on the weekends and I could make a little extra cash. So yeah, the harm is many people coming in, and then what happens is that the franchise fee that gets paid goes down as lots of these haulers come in. The franchisee is not able to regulate those haulers in any way. So if we get, let's say we have a hydraulic leak in a truck, we get a call right away, usually from somebody at the city or somebody saying, hey, there's a spill here, and we're required to go out and clean that up. There are a lot of requirements. We're required to report to DEQ all of the recycling that we pick up. And not only do we have to report what we pick up, but we have to report where it goes, and that location needs to report that they received that same amount for us. So we can't just make those things up. So I think the harm is that you dilute the franchise system to the point that it's no longer effective. You don't have any control. You don't control his rates, or maybe his rates are great, or maybe he's giving it away, but the 50 other haulers who come in are not, and you don't control that. I'll give you an example. We know there's a company online called Big Red Dumpster. I think that's what it's called. And they advertise that they can work cheap. They just say they can work cheaper than the local companies. And so people call them, or they get online and they order a dumpster, and then those companies call us and they pay our franchised rate, and they charge the customer more. And I think that's another issue too, is that we have a lot of requirements and regulations to notify the customers, to help when recycling changes or when rules or laws change, and these other companies don't have that. It might not be that they that they're trying to be deceptive. It might just be that they don't know about these things. So yeah, I think when you start to dilute the franchise, you start to lose any control that you have.
And then if you could reiterate some of the remedies that, or any new ones that you've thought of now, or that as you see it with this situation.
I think we would need to sit down and talk about, you know, let's be really transparent and honest about what you're hauling. And let's talk about what we disagree with and what we agree with. And I think there just needs to be an understanding of that. But I think when you do that, you've got to look at the whole franchise. You can't take a sentence here and a sentence there and decide that you qualify for these exemptions. And I think that's really a part of the communication gap here too.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, further questions? Got Indra?
I just want to go back to what I asked a question. So in the September 16th meeting minutes, it states Julie Jackson reviewed franchise exceptions, noting space exists for junk haulers under current rules and does not recommend making amendments to the franchise at this point. So you said that. Do you feel that?
I do. I absolutely wouldn't make changes to the franchise. I think that's why we're here tonight, why we
No, it says space exists for junk haulers under current rules.
Yes, the rules that the way that I've explained it, the things that he can do and the things that he can't do under the current rules of the franchise. And if you want to call,
junk hauler.
You can call him a junk hauler or a waste hauler, but it's really not the name of the business so much as what he's doing. And that's where I'm saying, yeah, I think there's room for everybody, but I don't think there's room for him to do everything that a franchised waste hauler can do.
What's your definition of junk hauler?
Somebody who's hauling discards that other people don't want. So those could, and again, the lane for him is to haul away reusable materials, recyclable, not just recyclable, but reusable or repairable materials. But I would say there isn't room for him to haul trash. Things that, and by that I mean material that goes to a landfill, material that would need to go to a transfer and be transferred to a landfill.
Okay, I was just surprised to see that because this seems different from what you've been saying here.
I think it's what I've been saying. Okay. I think I've been saying there's a lane for him. He's just stepped outside of his lane, we believe.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay. I don't want to cut anybody off, but I'm just going to be reiterating of the procedure that we're going through here. We still have availability for public comment, and then the complainant still has a 5-minute window for a closing statement before council starts to discuss and or action. So thank you very much, and if there's no further questions for Republic Services, then I will open up for public comment on this topic only for this hearing. Is there anybody within the public that would like to speak on behalf of this hearing tonight, specific topic only? Step up to the podium, state your name, where you live, and you have 3 minutes, please. To the topic at hand, though?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Nancy Lester, Grants Pass. And listening to this whole conversation, I think one piece is missing, and that is there is a customer that needs these services, and everything that I hear is not addressing the easiest, least expensive way for that customer to get their goods removed from their property. And I think you need to really think about that piece of it. It's not just the franchise agreement. It's not just Connor, but there's a customer in there. It's your public, and you need to think about them. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments, public? Jump up, state your name, and you got 3 minutes.
My name is Dwayne Lumpkin, Grants Pass citizen. My understanding is this is a franchise agreement between the solid waste management companies and the city of Grants Pass. But it sounds like the solid waste management companies are making all of the decisions. I don't see any documentation of a infraction that upheld this 5-year ban from, I think they stated they had no evidence of anything, just their assumption that he was hauling goods that he shouldn't be hauling. I'm a general contractor, and I hired Connor last weekend to come to a job site to assist with the demo of a deck, which he did, and I partly hired him because he has a contractor's license. I can legally hire him according to the CCB as a subcontractor. I couldn't just bring anybody in to do that job if they weren't an employee of mine. It requires him having a contractor's license. I think Connor's operated in good faith in trying to work with the franchise agreement, and I think the solid waste management companies have basically been autonomous to make decisions about what is proper, what is not proper. There's conflicts with agencies here. I mean, the Contractors Board has very serious rules in place that determine who can operate on a job site, who can do this, who can do that, who can haul waste. But they seem to be able to determine which contractors get to haul that garbage to the dump. And things were stated about debris taken to the dump and documentation needed. Just last weekend, I hauled 2 trucks and 2 trailers from that dump site to the Merlin dump, was never asked about where that came from. It was painted, what year that place was built, what content of the paint was. I've hauled multiple loads. The only time I've ever been questioned about my loads is if there's evidence of drywall or sheetrock. And then they want documentation that shows that it is asbestos free. Any other load has gone straight through with no questions of where it came from, what the contents of those demo loads are. I feel like a lot of these rules are being applied very arbitrarily. I also know you're assuming that the solid waste management companies are operating in good faith. But the owner of one of the solid waste companies in town has filed multiple police reports against Connor Kirkpatrick, including false claims that he's living in an illegal rental. So the owner of one of the solid waste management companies has taken this to a very personal level, but you're all under the assumption that they're operating in good faith, and that's just not the case here.
Thank you. Any other public comment in regards to this hearing?
Rika Brown, Grants Pass. A decade or so ago, I was walking around town picking up trash and filling bags with it, and asked the city where I can put it. And they said to put it in their trash cans. They're all over town. But yeah, I didn't want to be having to haul all this trash to the dump and have to pay for it. So I got free service from the city to take that stuff away, you know, to get. And I also, nowadays, we have a free shelf out in front of my house. It's about yay long, yay high, 4 shelves. Doesn't hold a whole lot. But of course, people are just thrilled to be able to take their stuff to my shelf. And so, you know, good stuff or things that can possibly be fixed. And then again, along the way there's quite a few people who just leave their trash. Mostly the bags and the boxes that they bring it in. And I have to break down those boxes, put things in the right things in the trash, right things in the recycle, and pay Republic to haul that off. I've got the biggest bin that they have for residential use. I had 8 people in my house, now I only have 5, but I still need that extra room for the trash that people take to my shelf and leave. And Republic's been good about picking it up in the trash bins that I have. And I think they are just making it too hard for a guy to make a living and do good for the world at the same time. There's nothing wrong with running a little nonprofit, which, my gosh, that's exactly what I'm running, is a little nonprofit right out in front of my house. People come there, they could find stuff that, oh wow, cool, every day. I have seen that shelf empty and refill six times in one day.
Thanks, Rika. Next.
Good evening. My name is Trent Carpenter. I am the General Manager of Southern Oregon Sanitation, and I'm here representing them. I think it's important to understand that we are talking about two very specific exclusions that Mr. Kirkpatrick has claimed that he meets. He also talks about not having due process. I think it's also important to remember that there is a solid waste agency that's made up of members of this group, and the county and the city of Cave Junction. They have heard his claims at least 3 different occasions, and every time have ruled that he does not meet these exemptions. So it's not just SOS or Republic arbitrarily deciding he doesn't meet them. There's been a governing body look at this, and that's in that agency. The 2 exemptions, one is for a contractor. I think Connor said it best when he said, if you Google junk removal, you find my company. Junk removal has nothing to do with being a contractor. It's an absolute violation of the contract and the franchise to say I can come remove your junk. The contractor exemption is very limited in its scope for a very specific reason. It is in connection and the creation by that contractor for a job site, a contractor site. It specifically says that. If Connor was to submit, here's my permit, it's in my name, and here's construction and demolition from that site, it would be easy for him to come in. Minus the fact that he still advertises today that he's a junk removal company. That makes it very difficult to thread that needle. But we don't see construction and demolition coming in, we see just garbage, solid waste. Then there's the exclusion for a charity. And that's another one of those that just recently happened. I believe it's in the last year, I'm not sure about that he received his 501c3. Wonderful, great things, do wonderful things for this community. Again, that doesn't allow you to say that you're a junk hauling company and that you can go remove solid waste from somebody's house. That exclusion is specific to reusable items. So every once in a while something would come in that you couldn't sell, that would make sense. That doesn't make sense that you have truckload after truckload after truckload of solid waste. He's asked for you to look at this. This has been viewed by the Solid Waste Agency again multiple times. It has been ruled that it doesn't meet the exemptions. I don't believe it meets the exemptions, and I think you can find that out for yourselves. These are very specific, very limited exemptions. And again, for us to try and thread the needle on, well, he's a junk hauling company online and on Facebook and what he advertises, but this is not that load. Almost impossible. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Come on up. Go ahead and state your name. You got 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Rob Brandis. I am the Director of Operations for Southern Oregon Sanitation. I was formerly the chair of the Solid Waste Agency for almost 20 years, so I'm going to kind of bounce between 2 hats. The Solid Waste Agency is a gift, for lack of a better term, that has existed here for a long time. All of our predecessors, there were city folks, there was county folks, there were representatives of both franchisees, had the foresight to put that together. And since that happened, that agency has overseen the franchises, which have contributed the environmental program fees and the franchise fees, which have successfully shut down Marlson, Kirby, and the Grants Pass station to the tune of millions, literally millions of dollars. So one of the biggest charges of that agency is to make sure that there's substantial reserves for when things happen. We bonded Kirby, I want to say it was about 15 years ago, it was $1.8 million to put a cap on that thing, and the ongoing costs every year are probably $100,000. So the franchise has big guardrails we got to keep in mind at a minimum. I think to Julie and Trent's point about as cracks start to appear on that, I'm going to jump into my role as Public Works Director for 25 years. We would spend $25,000 a year picking up roadside trash, and that was just using community corrections. That's as good a bang for the buck as we're going to get. We could have spent 4 times that. And I'll let you guess where the primary problems were. Upper River Road, Merlin Galease, Pinecrest. What do those have in common? They go to the dump. I will promise you another thing. It's not Republic's trucks. It's not Southern Oregon Sanitation's trucks dumping that stuff. That's not an indictment of any specific haulers, but that's where it's coming from. So there are reasons we have a formalized franchise setting that puts a lot of hurdles on both companies. In the 4 months that I've been out there, my eyes were opened. Our gate attendants are trained for 6 weeks just to learn how to analyze what they see come in. And they don't just willy-nilly take a shot. If we see an outlier construction, for example, it's pretty apparent. It's framing, it's traditional C&D materials. We get other ones where it looks like that. Just today we dumped a box out. There was a cut-up motorhome on the bottom of that box. So our folks have a tough job there at that gate saying, man, what is this? And if you have a contractor who for about the 3rd time in a month is bringing in banana peels, kitchen trash, all this kind of stuff, you say, man, I don't know if that really had anything to do with construction. So it's easy to sit here and say it ought to be really black and white, but in the field it's not. I think these franchise agreements capture a lot of that. Is there work to do? Sure. And I think it absolutely put the solid waste agency in a spot of having to decide, are we going to adjudicate this? Hence it landed here. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further public comment? All right, seeing none, thank you for your participation. We're going to bring it back. The complainant has a 5-minute window for a closing statement.
All right, I just wrote down a handful of things that I was going to respond to, so I apologize, kind of all over the place. Let's see, where did I start? Okay, so, So I've been to countless solid waste agency meetings attempting to resolve this issue. So as far as saying I haven't attempted to resolve this issue, that's not true. I've gone to many solid waste agency meetings that they were at, so we're past that. We're past just scheduling a meeting to try to meet with them. We're beyond that point of the process, and we're here now. Also, junk is a subjective term. One man's trash is another man's treasure. Also, I am fully aware of the need to test demolition debris. Anytime I have drywall or carpet or anything that needs to be tested, I am well aware that that needs to be tested, and I have those materials tested before I dispose of them, because even if I have to drive an hour away to Ashland or wherever, I need that test wherever I go. So I do that already. I'm well aware of that. Also, I've never received any communication from Douglas County. I know that Trent's family operates transfer stations up there, so they may have started a ban on me up there, but I have never received any communication of any ban from any facility from Douglas County. So that's either not true, or I have been yet to have been informed of that. And also, the other bans of all these other facilities were orchestrated by Southern Oregon Sanitation. And they happened after I joined the mattress recycling program. On March 18th, I came to that solid waste agency meeting. I said, hey, I have a nonprofit organization. I fit this exemption. And I also joined this mattress recycling program. 3 days later, I was banned from rogue disposal in White City. That's a direct retaliation on me for, one, speaking out about my exemption, and for two, meeting a state mandate. And so for them to say he's been banned from other places, yeah, because they coordinated a ban because I'm fitting state recycling mandates that they're refusing to do. And also back to the Bed Bath & Body Works, I didn't unload their dumpster. I only took the stuff that didn't fit in their dumpster. So I'm not sure if there was a confusion on that or whatever. She brought up my mother issue. Trent banned my mom from SOS when she tried to bring her own load of trash into the dump. My mom's a landlord. She has tenants that leave junk in her house. She has a pickup truck, so she can haul that junk to the transfer station. They banned my mother from going to the dump as a landlord trying to clean up her own property because they thought, because she's my mom, she must be hauling my junk. That is a flagrant misuse of the rights, and that was SOS, not even Republic. That's why I didn't even involve this here, but she brought that up. So anyway, getting lost. So there's no point in sitting down for a meeting if they're unwilling to honor the exemptions. Either they are forced to honor the exemptions or they won't honor the exemptions. She literally said the lane that I can exist in is a lane where I don't go to the transfer station. So in her own words, they're not going to lift the ban if we sit down for a meeting. And also, to the point of the 90-year-old with the couch, do we want couches on curbs all over town? Is that what you want me to do? Do you want me to go around town and just drag all the stuff to the curb and then just have piles of trash all over on every curb? I can put a couch on every curb if that's how you want me to operate, but that seems ridiculous. You'll just have couches on every curb. The other thing, there's materials that they don't even take at the dump, like paint. You can't bring paint to the dump. If a homeowner has paint and how are they supposed to get rid of it? They call me and I take it to Diamond Home Improvement where they recycle the paint. There's other items and you can't bring paint to the dump. And I know what you can and can't bring to the dump. I'm well aware. I know what you can and can't do, and I am more than willing to comply with all the rules and the regulations. Let's see. Not everyone has the time or the location to do an estate sale, so sometimes it's easier for organizations like mine. Why is a multi-billion-dollar corporation fighting so hard to shut down a local small business? Councillor King is spot on with his interpretations. Repairable or cleanable discards means something someone discarded that may be repairable or cleanable. That means a broken or dirty item. That's what repairable or cleanable discards means, in other words. It doesn't have to be immediately reused. If I determine that it's not cost-effective to repair or clean that item, that's when that waste is generated by me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that concludes all of our participation at this moment in time. So we're going to bring it back to council for further discussion or action. And I guess you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm looking at this as you have a complaint that we are overseeing at this moment in time in regards to 2 franchise exemptions within the franchise agreement. 2.8.1 and 2.8.7. So it is your guys' as a council, you are hearing this matter, and I'm interpreting it as you guys want to be the interpreters of these 2 exemptions. And I see your hands up. I will bring it back to you in a second. So look at this as you will, and we will start discussion. I had Victoria first, and then Joel, and then Indra. Victoria?
It seems to me that Republic Services is willing to sit down with Mr. Kirkpatrick, and it also seems to me that one of our choices is that we can defer council action. So I would like to make a motion that we defer council action and give the opportunity for Republic Services to meet if they choose. Mr. Kirkpatrick said he probably didn't want to do that, but it seems like it would be an easy way for this to be worked out. It's always better when the 2 parties are most close to the issue, work it out together. So I make a motion to defer with the hope that, I don't think council can say that we are mandating that these 2 meet, but with the hope that the 2 parties would meet to discuss what can be done and can't be done. So I guess for the purposes of clarity, though, my motion is just to defer this action.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. We're not stopping discussion, so I'm just reiterating the motion. The motion on the floor is to defer council's decision to a later date?
Yeah, it should be basically probably to a date certain, because there is a complaint that is to council, and so we should probably.
To a date certain, let's say, can we say 30 days or?
March 4th meeting?
Till the March 4th meeting.
Okay.
Okay. And your kind of line of question is you didn't know if the council could request or mandate a mediation or whatever. I don't see why you can't.
Oh, okay, well then I would also like to request that the two parties do meet.
Am I wrong in that? Because realistically, if you're saying that you want to postpone it for a date certain because...
So that they can meet, yeah.
Or you could say highly recommend. I'm just
And I
thinking-
highly recommend that they meet before the March 4th meeting.
So to reiterate the motion, the motion on the table is to postpone council decision until the March 4th with the high recommendation of two-party mediation before that happens. And a second, does that satisfy you, Victoria? Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. So the motion is on the table with a second. Further discussion. I got Joel, Indra, and then Rob, and Seth, and then Rob. Joel?
So I'm looking at the notes of the Solid Waste Agency, and Rick, I think you were at that meeting, so I'd like to hear from you. I'd just like to quote from that meeting so that we all have the facts of what's true and what's on paper. Julie Jackson from Republic Services reviewed franchised exceptions from Republic Services, noting space exists for, she called it, junk haulers under current rules. Noting space exists for junk haulers under current rules. That's what's on the paper, and does not recommend making amendments to the franchise at this point. So, Rick, you were there. Could you give us context to that?
My best recollection was that Connor was going directly from his site to the landfill where he needed a dumpster on site, which he now has on site. So my recollection back then, he did not have a dumpster. He was just hauling it directly.
Okay.
So with the information and the presentation it was back then, that's what I recall. And Rob Brandis could also respond to that as well, if you would like a second viewpoint. Thank you.
Jason?
Well, I was going to say, Rick is right on target. That was the context. It was also discussed, Councilor King, that the junk haulers can operate by offering the cleanup, the property cleanup services, and then utilizing dumpster services of the franchisees. So the rules didn't need to change. They just may not be hauling. What they would be doing is loading up the recyclables and the clean discards that they would then put into the thrift store, but the trash would then be going into dumpsters in a separate side stream. That was the discussion as I recollected it. We didn't maybe get at the verbatim minutes, but that was kind of the gist.
Okay, good.
Yep. All right. Further discussion, I got Indra, Seth, and Rob. Indra?
So this seems pretty cut and dry to me. I mean, without making any judgment on who's right or not right, he said, she said, I think it's kind of irrelevant here because it's been 5 years since he's gone to the dump. Maybe he didn't do things right 5 years ago. We don't know. They're saying what he needs to do. The rules are clear. Connor's saying he knows what he needs to do. He's got the dumpster on his site now that he's going to follow the rules. And so in my mind, the complaint is that he's still banned and he shouldn't be banned. So in my mind, the complaint should be upheld. He gets to go to the dump and do the things properly and legally as to what he's saying he's going to do. And then Republic monitors that to see if he's really doing that going forward. And if he is, it's all good. If he's not, then there are repercussions to that. In my mind, I don't see why we would defer it and make them meet.
Further discussion, I got Seth.
Yeah, I mean, I think the complaint should be unfounded, just strictly on the basis of that those exemptions, currently as they stand, they're being broken, right? So he's not following them as they stand. So, but that does not mean that I think they should meet beyond this, and they can come up with what that looks like. So I don't think it needs to be deferred either, but I don't think it should be. I don't think it meets the requirements for an exemption, because then we're basically saying that what he's saying is accurate and not what Republic Service is saying is accurate, if that makes sense. I do want to state, I'm obviously pro-business. I think this is a tough one because this is basically two businesses, going at it right here in front of us. The multi-billion-dollar corporation concept, while I get it, all companies have to start somewhere. Southern Oregon Sanitation started as a small company, so, it's not all corporations that are, the bad guys, I will say. But, I would recommend beyond this, again, I think it's unfounded just based on what I'm reading, but I would still like to see Mr. Kirkpatrick and Republic sit down and, review the exemptions and figure out how he can fit within those exemptions. I think the issue was resolved because the Solid Waste Agency ruled on this already. And so, here we are debating it again, but that is their job. And, we had public comment that said that they did listen to the exact same thing and they ruled on that. So I'm going to go with that. I think Julie mentioned, that this could set a precedent, and I think that's accurate. Because again, if we say that he meets all the requirements based on what he's saying, then anyone could go and follow that. I'm not saying he doesn't meet any of them. I think there's areas, and so I think they need to sit down and talk those out. I think for me it's unfounded, because I don't want to set a precedent today.
Further discussion, I got Rob, Victoria, and Kathleen. Rob?
Yeah, I very much agree with what Indra just said. To me, this is a logical straight line. I believe that the complaint is founded, and I think that councilors who are at this point saying that they want the two of them to get together, I think is just in a fantasy. One of the parties has already said that we're past that point, and that's why he filed the complaint. So to hope that somehow miraculously that they're going to agree and everyone's going to trust each other from this point forward, I think it's silly. I don't know, on customer dispute resolution, on slide 6 of the packet, 8.1.3, to me, this is where this has to go, because it says if either party disagrees with the city's decision, either party may submit the matter to be decided by neutral binding arbitration in accordance with the rules of the American Arbitration Association and the rules and the laws of the state of Oregon, not by court action except as provided by Oregon law, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. To me, council should make a decision tonight, and at that point, either one of these parties can then go to arbitration, because the bottom line is we've just gone around in a circle for about 3 hours with this, and these two parties are going to continue to go around in circles, and to think that anything is miraculously going to change, it's not. We've heard that. It should be very clear. So I'm ready to act on this, and again, I feel that his complaint is founded, and the fact that essentially one party here, the franchisee, has been the, the expression I used earlier, the judge, jury, and executioner here, I think is completely, I think it's very unfair. And I would believe that any of the associated, like we had someone from Public tonight, we had someone from SOS, not shocking that they agree with each other. Of course they're going to agree with each other, as is every transfer station that is controlled by them. It's going to be unanimous. Right? Of course it's going to be. I mean, that's just silly to think that was independent view, because it's not. So again, I believe it's founded, and I believe that if Republic then feels that that the council is in error, they can take it to binding arbitration, which is where this is going to end up anyway. But that's my feeling.
Thanks, Rob. Next up to discussion, Victoria, and then Kathleen. Victoria?
Well, the complaint was about 2.8.1 and 2.8.7 from my understanding, and it seems clear that that Republic was seeing that those were not being met. And that is where the disconnect is. And then, but I'm also hearing from Mr. Kirkpatrick that now I have, now I do have a contractor's license, so so the business has changed, but he's still banned, and that's why they need to talk and start anew. It just seems to me, and it could be it very well could be that this will go to mediation. But if it were tonight, I mean, I would vote that no, under the current way that it was presented, the things that were being brought to Republic Services do not meet the exemptions of 2.8.1 or 2.8.7. And so it isn't clear. And we have franchise for trash disposal because it's in, I mean, because cities have to. Yeah, I mean, you have to have an industry that is going to be charged with doing that, and they do have to make up their own industry standards, just like any industry does. They become the experts on this service, on this industry, because that's what they do. So it would make sense that it would be unanimous because they are the industry standard. They've been doing it. They know what to do. They know how to do it, and they know what should be done and what shouldn't be done. And for me, it was answered that with the harm and the remedy.
Victoria, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you, but we're coming on 9 o'clock, and you know what we have to do. I don't want to interrupt you. So
really quick.
No, if you take a pause, you can get somebody to motion that we can go forward past 9 o'clock. Rick? Procedure.
I'd like to make a motion that we go past 9 o'clock.
Second? All in favor, yes? Yay, okay. Go ahead, Victoria, sorry.
Yeah.
Just keep it on procedure.
It's, maybe it seems to me, and it's just kind of my way of looking at it, but no, you don't meet these, you do not meet the exceptions, but there could be something new that you're doing that does. And that's why these two parties need to meet. And I don't think, it just doesn't seem like hearing from many people in the industry tonight that they are just trying to pick on one business. I mean, it wouldn't even make sense to do that. So if they could talk and come together, it would be better for us, it would be better for them, because what I would vote on tonight myself would be that no, it does not seem, it's not generated by a contractor, it's trash, and that it just didn't seem to meet the exceptions. But if the two were going to meet and they could talk again about, okay, well, this is what you could do. Like, for instance, the job, there was public comment that said there was deck, you know, a deck was torn apart, you know, and if you brought with you the license for the construction, sure, then that would be something that you could do. But not under these, you can't, because your particular business doesn't meet these two exceptions. So, that's why I made the motion.
Thank you, Victoria.
Okay, thank you.
Next discussion, I have Kathleen and then Indra. Kathleen?
Well, I just wanted to say that I think that mediation is a viable option because from personal experience with the business I had and another business, I was pretty disgruntled about having to go to mediation, but when I did, it brought a solution that really solved the problem. And we didn't have to go to small claims court, and we didn't have to do anything further than that. I thought mediation worked really well, and it is effective.
Thank you. Further discussion, I got Indra. We do have a motion on the table right now, but we are trying to get in as much discussion as possible first.
Yeah. So I think we're really damaging someone who's trying to do a small business based on something he did 5 years ago. And so I think when I hear people say, counselors say he's doing this and that, we don't know what he's doing. It's been 5 years, and he's telling us he knows and he'll do it correctly. Like he has a deck job. So tomorrow, if he goes to get the demolition of the deck, he can't take it to the dump. And so, because he's banned. So we're assuming on things that he's still doing, which he may not. And we're not even giving the chance to him to correct and make it right. My other point is that if we find the complaint is unfounded, there is no incentive for Republic to meet with him, period. And then what does he do? I don't know. Do you file another complaint? What do you do after that? Only by holding that the complaint is valid does that get Republic to the table to talk. So I think we're really, I just believe that we should give the benefit of the doubt to a small business owner to try and make things right this time around.
Thank you. We can continue discussion, but we do have motion on the table to postpone decision to March 4th. And a vote yes on that will not make a decision tonight. It will postpone the decision till March 4th. Voting no on that motion will leave it open-ended. So further discussion. Victoria?
Part of that motion was that we highly suggest that the two
Correct. I'm just
parties-
generalizing.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Indra?
So what happens if they don't meet?
It's up to the council to make another motion. Oh, if they don't, sorry, if they don't meet, well, basically, the motion was highly encourage them to meet before the next decision as part of the motion.
If they don't meet, you still at the March 4th meeting have this in front of you to make a determination on whether it's founded or not.
Yep. So any further discussion? Okay, there's a motion on the.
Quick
go ahead.
question. So,
Go ahead, Rob.
So on the postponement date, so at that point, public comment's already been taken, so that wouldn't happen again, correct?
Procedurally.
Or are we going to go through another 3 hours of round robin?
Yeah, if you're taking in new information, then you likely need to have it open to additional public comment. If no information was being provided, but it's just a continuation, then that would be different. But I believe you're potentially going to be hearing from the other parties, which would then require probably a public comment.
So it could be an unlimited time again.
Yeah, well, you would go into another proceeding.
Very inefficient, but thank you.
Okay, so the motion on the table is to postpone to March 4th with criteria. We've made a lot of discussion. Voting yes on this would postpone your decision to March 4th. Voting no would leave the dais open for further motions. Rob, you want discussion?
Yeah, just so the bottom line is whichever way if we were to decide tonight, whichever way we decide tonight, again, either party, the law says if either party disagrees with the city's decision, either party may submit the matter to be decided by neutral binding arbitration in accordance with the rules of the American Arbitration Association, et cetera, et cetera. So if we decide this tonight, either party can then take it forward to an arbitrator, and they would then come up with a final decision.
Thank you. We'll go ahead with a vote. Victoria?
Yes.
Seth?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
No.
Indra?
No.
Joel?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got 5-2. So this council decision is postponed to March 4th with the encouragement of two parties meeting before that time and I guess presenting more information. Thank you very much for all your participation. Next on the agenda tonight is ordinances amending Development Code, Article 17, lots and creation of lots regarding property line vacations. And do we have?
Yeah, it's legislative, so you need the public hearing. There you go.
Okay, at this time, I will open a public hearing to consider this application as filed. The application is for the ordinance amending development code. As I stated, we will begin the hearing with a staff report followed by presentation by the applicant, statements by persons in favor of the application, statements by persons in oppositions. Can you guys keep it down a little bit, please? Shh, shh. Thanks. Application opportunity for an additional comment by applicant and staff. After that has occurred, the public comment portion will be closed and the matter will be discussed and acted upon by the council. Is there anyone present who wishes to challenge the authority of the council to hear this matter? Seeing none, do any councilors wish to abstain from participating in this hearing or declare a potential conflict of interest? Seeing none, are there any councilors who wish to disclose discussions, contact, or other ex parte information they have received prior to this meeting regarding this application? Seeing none, this is a hearing. The decision of the council is based upon specific criteria which are set forth in the development code. All testimony which applies in this case are noted in the staff report. If you would like a copy of this report, please make a note to the city manager and one can be provided. It is important to remember if you fail to raise an issue with enough detail to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. The hearing will now proceed with a report from Brad. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I apologize because I think this is going to be far less interesting than what you just talked about. So this is a proposal to amend the development code in one very specific small section related to vacating property lines. This is in Article 17. And it would, in essence, change the authority to make these decisions from you to the planning director or the community development director, which is going from a type 4 to a type 1 decision. And it relates to your goal related to infrastructure. This originated late 2024. The council did give direction to staff. As you know, you've already received a couple of these applications in front of you to look at changing the code so that it would put the authority away from the council into staff. On December 10th, the Urban Area Planning Commission held a public hearing, and they did unanimously recommend approval of this application. The Development Code Review Task Force, the body that you created, has been meeting for a few months now. They haven't formally talked about this topic, but informally we did bring it up, let them know that the application was coming to you, and the folks on that task force were supportive of this as well. One of which is a Planning Commission member, but there's 6 other members on there as well. We took a look at the last 5 years, 2020 to 2025, to see how many of these applications have come through. There's been 49. That does include street plug vacations, and all 49 of those applications have been approved. There has not been a single denial. Here's a little bit of detail comparing the two. So on the top row here is the type 4. That's the way it currently is, where City Council is the decision maker. Current fee is about $770. On-site public hearing, posting notice, there's a yes. So we, all type 4 applications require that there be a physical property posting of the notice, so basically an on-site notice of the application. That's true for all of our type 3s and type 4s, or most of our type 3s and all of our type 4 applications. And we also, in addition to the property posting, require a radius notice of 200 feet. That whole thing takes about 45 days. If you approve this tonight, that would go to a type 1B. That would make the authority the director. The fee would drop about $300. There would not be an on-site notice posted. We would still do a mailing to all the property owners within 100 feet. That's what we do with other type 1s. And it would take about 30 days. So bottom line here, it saves some staff time. We don't have to prepare presentations. We would not have to do a full-blown staff report. It also takes the application time from when they apply to the final decision is shorter. Shaves off about 2 weeks, could be a little more, could be a little less depending on the timeline. There's 4 required criterion to make changes like this in the code. You've seen this a few times now. The Planning Commission did review these 4 criterion and they found that they were satisfied. The criteria to approve these would not change. Staff would still need to go through that process. So it's the same criteria and that doesn't change. Call to action is here tonight. There have been no written public comments that were submitted for this tonight. There's no 120-day deadline, and the Planning Commission did recommend approval. And there's a few alternatives for you.
So I got a quick question, and then I'll let council. So this is stated as, just for clarification, lots and creation of lots regarding property line vacations. So this would fall in the realm of lot split, minor lot split, or just moving of a lot line?
Just removing.
Removing a lot line. Okay.
Correct.
So
yep.
Taking 2 lots and making it into 1 in
Correct.
general terms. Okay. Thanks for the clarification. Any further questions? Joel?
So Brad, has the council ever denied any of these in the past?
They have not.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to be the first? Just kidding. Any further questions? Sorry, it's late in the night. I'm kind of getting a little campy.
I should clarify, we looked at the last 5 years. It's possible that prior to that, there was a denial.
I appreciate the mayor's humor.
Thanks. Indra?
But if it was denied, they could appeal to the council, correct? Is that right? If it didn't go the way they wanted?
All appeals of the council decision have to go to the Land Use Board of Appeals.
So it would go higher?
Thank you.
No, lower?
That's not a question. Her question, right, your question was if they wanted to appeal the director's decision, it would come to council.
Right.
Is that your question? Yeah.
Right, that was my question.
Sorry.
No, I thought you were talking about the prior. Yeah, no, that's correct. Any appeal of a director's decision goes to the Planning Commission first, and then if it's not resolved there, then it would go to the council.
Okay, that's what
So you're talking about like a specific case?
Yeah, well, you're not just skipping over us completely.
Any further questions for Brad? Seeing none, thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll open it up for public comment. Is there anybody in the public that would like to present in favor of this application? Is there anybody in the public that would like to present in opposition of this application? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for further discussion and or action. Kathleen.
I move to approve the ordinance amending Development Code 17 lots and creation of lots and have it read by title only, first reading.
All right, we have a motion on the table for approval with first reading. Is there a second from Rick? And any further discussion? All right, Kathleen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Seth?
Yes.
Victoria?
Yes.
All right, motion passes for first reading.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass amending Development Code Article 17, lots and creation of lots regarding property line vacations.
Thank you very much. Ordinance has been read for the first time. Seth?
Yeah, I move to approve the ordinance amending Development Code Article 17, lots and creation of lots, and have it read by title only, second reading.
All right, there's a motion for second reading with a second from Joel. And how do you vote, Seth?
Yes.
Victoria?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Thank you. Passes for second reading.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass amending Development Code Article 17, lots and creation of lots regarding property line vacations.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda will not happen as previous motion has postponed it. So We will go to general public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address the City Council on items not related to a public hearing or council action item for the council. The intent is to provide information that is pertinent to the city's jurisdiction. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes to address the council as one body, not two individuals. At the conclusion of public comment, council will have the opportunity to respond if they so choose. This meeting will proceed in an effective and courteous manner. Citizens and council members will be allowed to state their positions in an atmosphere free from slander, threats, or other personal attacks. Signs or placards, outbursts of applause, campaigning for public office, or other disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. If you have a question regarding any government provided service or a current city policy, please contact the city manager's office in an attempt to resolve that matter. All right, I have 3 cards here, and looks like Rika Brown, you're up. Please restate your name, and you have 2 minutes.
Rika Brown, Grants Pass. Coal is the only fossil fuel. It was formed only in the Carbonaceous era, when trees didn't rot because fungi could not use lignin. Trees died, fell, and piled up. As dirt covered them, they formed charcoal and slowly fossilized into coal. The Carbonaceous era ended when fungi evolved to use lignin. Oil and natural gas are not fossil fuels. They come not from ancient land animals, but from organic mud that builds up on oceanic plates that eventually slide under continental plates, the mud lubricating the process, and refined in the upper layers of the mantle from the churning of magma, heat, and pressure. I figured this out over a decade ago. Last year, I found an article in Live Science, North America is dripping down into the Earth's mantle, by Sasha Pear, April 2nd, 2025. The mud at the top of this plate below the center of the continent is refined into water, salt, oil, and natural gas. Being lighter than melting rock, they are pushed toward the surface. Springs of fresh and mineral water are common and keep rivers running. Salt gathers in caverns near the surface. The carbonaceous portion, oil and natural gas, sometimes finds cracks that reach the surface, which is how mankind discovered tar pits and used tar for sealing Moses' basket and ships. In 1859, oil was brought to the surface in Pennsylvania and refined into kerosene.
Thank you. All right, I got 2 other cards, but I'm assuming these people are gone, but I will announce it anyways. Jax? All right, thank you. Seth? All right, thank you. That concludes our portion of general public comment. Next on the agenda is our consent agenda. Can you please put that on the screen for us? I have been not notified of any items being starred or otherwise, so the consent agenda is as shown. I would be looking for council for some action. Victoria.
I move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Thank you. Is a second from Seth? It's been motioned and seconded to approve the consent agenda as shown. Victoria.
Yes.
Seth.
Yes.
Rick.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
Indra.
Yes.
Joel.
Yes.
Kathleen.
Yes.
All right. Consent agenda passes. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda tonight is matters for mayor and council. And at this moment in time, we would be appointing members to our first 40 Feet Citizens Advisory Committee first, and then we can get into discussions. Kathleen?
I had also two things I wanted to bring up.
Absolutely. We're going to get this one done first. Do we have?
We don't have a presentation. I don't know if Bradley has anything. We're just needing a representative from council to be on the first 40 committee.
Oh, apologize that I didn't read that part. It's appointing a counselor. Rob.
Yeah, this has been an item of interest for me for about 5 years. I brought it to 6 years, actually. I brought it to the prior council, prior to when I was on, and I'd like to actually be a part of it. I'd like to represent the council in this process.
Anybody else? Indra.
Yes, I would like to ask my fellow counselors, just as a courtesy, it's kind of nice sometimes, especially if there's something controversial or that we might have different opinions on, to have discussion before someone just jumps into a motion, because it makes it really confusing to discuss. I mean, we can do it, you have discussion and do the motion, but I just think out of courtesy, it's nice because sometimes I don't know which way I'm going, and I would like to hear people's discussion first before I even decide.
Can I put a pause on that first?
Yeah.
Because we want to get through the appointment of the council member to the committee first.
I thought we were in matters.
We are, but we want to get a representative from our body to be a part of this.
I'm so sorry. I'm tired.
I'm gonna bring it back to you after that. Seth?
Yeah, I'll nominate Rob for that position.
Okay, so we got one nomination for Rob to be the liaison for the first 40 feet Citizens Advisory Committee. Second from Joel. Any further discussion on that appointment? Seeing none. Seth?
Yes.
Victoria?
Yes.
Kathleen? Joel?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
All right, Rob will be our liaison to the advisory committee. Thank you very much. Now, Indra, you have the floor.
Well, I think I was finished, but just out of courtesy to have a little discussion prior helps me to think about it before motions are made. It's just helpful. I'm just asking for courtesy, not, of course, anyone can make a motion at any time, and I respect that, but I'm just asking.
And thank you for airing your concerns. Hopefully you guys do notice that I try to make sure that everybody does get a voice in all of this and make sure that we do have plenty of discussion, as was shown in previous here where we had a motion up front, but we did go through a healthy bit of discussion before we put that to a vote. So I'm very cognizant of that, but your concerns have been heard. Thank you. Any further matters from council? Kathleen?
Two. Okay.
You only get one. But if you're nice,
I'll
I'll give you two.
So I just wanted to give you a little update from the Community Outreach Panel for Parker's Place Village. The meeting's purpose, as it was defined by the group, is to review community feedback, opportunities for improvement, and ensure follow-through. It was consensus that the role of the Community Outreach Panel would be accountability. They stated that they put out a neighbor notification process in direct outreach in compliance with the city contract agreement. There's still some discrepancy on that, as these notices were only sent to property owners, which has not trickled down to the renters. So I'm going to have to ask the panel to reconsider some of who they're notifying for this. Some of these renters have no contact with their landowners whatsoever. They have established a email, parkersplacevillage@gmail.com, and an official Facebook page. Although with the Facebook page, they've turned the comments off, which I thought was interesting. Let's see. and they are meeting the fourth Friday of each month. So if anybody has anything to bring to Seth or I for the panel, we'll be meeting the fourth Friday of each month. Yeah.
I think, Chief Hensman, I'll take you up on meeting at the police station moving forward. I think that'd be easiest. Just a side note. I saw you, I think you mentioned it in an email.
Yeah, I mentioned an email. Absolutely happy to satisfy that need.
And you're going to notify everybody in there? Okay.
That was one.
The second business thing that I had to bring was an interesting thing that happened this last week when I tried to go to agenda setting. There was a discrepancy about the laws, and which I wasn't informed about. As when I got there, I was denied to attend the meeting, even though there wasn't a quorum of counselors. I was told that there were new laws. Well, Stephanie had just simultaneously sent out a public meeting laws training, and so I took the training. And there was nothing in the training that said that under quorum could meet in the agenda setting meeting, because that isn't a decision-making body. That's just a agenda setting. There's no vote taken there. There's no decision-making happening there. So I just wanted to bring it back to council about what everybody thinks about other councilors attending the meetings if there is no quorum in those.
So under an interpretation of the current Oregon State meeting law, we had determined that if we had a meeting of agenda setting with myself, council president, council vice president, and then an additional floating council member, then that was advised to be too close to a quorum, because there is decision-making that could be argued happens in the agenda setting, meaning that we're setting precedent going forward on what items the council would be seeing within their agenda. So if you wanted to weigh in on that as well, Stephanie?
So there were a couple of concerns that were raised. First was my understanding is there were supposed to be 4 council members at that meeting plus the mayor. While it doesn't quite meet the quorum requirements, if you have 4 council members, that's a tie vote with the mayor being a tiebreaker. So there's some concern about that. It's not it would not technically be a violation of quorum, though, for purposes of the meeting. The other piece to it had to do with more along the lines of that many council members receiving information outside of a public meeting. Some of the topics that were on the agenda for that meeting were ones that would cross the line, where it would be actually receiving and discussing information itself. I believe it was the legislative priorities components. Because of the nature of that conversation, there was concern that it would then lead to half, if not more, of the council obtaining information outside of a public meeting. And that we just wanted to make sure that there was some precautions taken, particularly when the council procedures say that the only 2 council members should be involved in the agenda setting. It should be the council president plus 1 rotating, and that there would only be 2. So expanding that to 4 was outside of council procedures.
Well, I had checked with the vice president, and he was out of town that week, so I knew that he wasn't going to be attending. And so I agree. If it's 4, maybe that could be questionable, but there was only going to be 3 at that meeting. So I verified it by being there.
So we changed our format going forward, where we basically will have myself, the council president, the council vice president will not be in attendance of the agenda setting meeting, so that leaves the breadth of us having a rotating council member, and we'll be well underneath scrutiny. I personally kind of took it upon myself as to walk a little bit more genderly around the new Oregon meeting laws and don't want to tiptoe in the gray area. So basically, that's kind of why we've changed things a little bit. But going forward, we're going to go with council president, myself, and then a rotating council member.
Where are those new laws? Wasn't even brought up in this training that I took that was...
The new laws that we're referencing was the concerns about serial meetings, which we talked about before, and which changed in, I believe it was the 2023 legislative session. I think they took effect in 2024. Those were the laws that we were concerned about with public meetings, making sure that all information was being received by the vast majority of council at a public meeting, which with the topic of the legislative priorities, what we expected from that discussion was going to be outside of just straight, this goes on an agenda and on what date kind of a topic. It was going to be more substantive than that, and there was concerns.
Okay, so my training was from 2024, and there was nothing said in there about that. I mean, yeah, it just says you didn't, I mean, yeah, if you have a quorum, that's obvious. But you have anything under a quorum, and there were only going to be 3 at that meeting.
But there's also the OGEC interpretation of the new laws, which didn't come out until July of 2025. And that's what has given us a lot of pause over the last few months, because OGEC's interpretation says that 2 council members talking to people individually can mean that everybody has a violation regardless of whether or not they knew that other people were talking to others. So it's a much broader definition and a much broader scope that OGEC interprets. And so maybe in the training that you watched, maybe it wasn't quite, they weren't aware of OGEC's interpretation at that time because that didn't come out until July.
And can you send that to us?
The interpretation, the OGEC, I believe I've handed it out twice.
You have?
Yes. I believe I provided it at the training last, the strategic planning.
It was in the strategic planning?
Yep, I distributed it then.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just to reiterate, I mean, the decision to kind of slim that meeting down was more for the whole of the body of the council to make sure that we were complying with the interpretations of that Oregon meeting law. And it wasn't to exclude anybody. It wasn't to be into that. We're just trying to, be within the realms of, I don't want to play in the gray area. Hopefully that's okay. And stick with your rotating agenda setting slot. And you guys can talk amongst yourself if you can't make it, or you want to, if you see an agenda setting coming up that you want to be involved in, you have every right to contact that person that's going to be in there, that floating council member, and trade spots with them if you want. Any further matters for Joel, and then Victoria. Joel.
I need some help from Aaron on this one. The Chamber of Commerce hires an outside firm to do a survey, and then they present that survey at the Hive. And I think all of you have been invited to it. That survey also includes feedback for city government, county government, different aspects of our community. Do you have the date on that, Aaron?
Yeah.
I know it was sent out to all council.
Yes, I do have the date on that, and above and beyond the date is the 20th. And when they're doing that at the Hive, although we are having a special presentation, BRNE is going to be presenting to the City Council that same information.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Okay. Okay. The other thing I just at the top of my head, proper procedures and notification when people don't meet, like with what Brad does in land use, and it applies to our earlier case. It's important that we document in letters if somebody's banned from something and the reason why, that it's on a piece of paper, not just a verbal thing, and has duration and the reason why that happens. And so any government matters where we do that, that's fairly important, I think, so that we're not arbitrary and capricious.
Victoria.
What time is that Hive presentation on the 20th? 8:30. Thank you. And the only thing that I wanted to say was, Kathleen, mentioned that there were not going to be 4 people at that council meeting, so it would have been fine if she stayed. So it's unfortunate that she wasn't able to. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out.
Think any other matters from council? Staff?
Yeah, I just have one clarifying matter based on direction you provided today at a meeting with regards to the Budget Committee and keeping it open for an additional week. If council feels that this is okay, we would have it open. We'll advertise it starting tomorrow, and it will be closed February 10th. That's next Tuesday. It's not a full week. The reason for that is if you want your packet on time, we'll need to get the applications in and the packets together. So if you're okay with that, it'd be just a short of a week, but if you want it to be a full week, then we would have information missing from the packet until probably the night of the meeting, so, or a little bit before. So if you're okay with that, us closing on the 10th, we'll close it on the 10th.
As you know, the packets are distributed at least 7 days before we actually utilize them to give you guys time to research them, so.
Hearing no objections, then we'll just have it open from tomorrow till the 10th then.
And then, Aaron, I just want to make sure I'm assuming you will reach out to those who interviewed today and let them know the timeline and how much we appreciated them coming today, even though we didn't vote on appointing as they expected us to. So just, you'll do that, I'm sure.
Certainly.
Well, and that also gives you an opportunity. There was one person that wasn't in attendance tonight for the interviews, so he has an opportunity to actually be involved in the next interviews. Stephanie.
Having heard about the Hive presentation that you were all invited to, we need to be careful of quorum, particularly if it's being advertised as information feedback for local government, because that is something that would come before this body. So it might be, and if this council is going to be getting essentially the same presentation, perhaps we wait for that as opposed to attending the Hive one, or at least council members make sure that there's not going to be a quorum.
I registered like when it came out, so.
I registered also already.
So maybe we should decide who gets to go to the Hive presentation and who waits until.
So you got Indra, Joel, and Seth who've already registered. That's 3. So that's 4. Kathleen, that's 4. So
Technically, it's my office, so.
Yeah, this isn't voting on.
As we've talked about before, receiving information on something that may come before you, which if it's feedback for local government to take into consideration, is matters that may come before council. So you have to be very careful about receiving that information in a group that's quorum.
Rick.
Is there a method that we, on the internet or something, if we know 4 counselors are attending, that we could put a notice in that the purpose of attending the meeting is for information?
It could be noticed as a public meeting that a quorum of council members may attend. It's not open. The meeting itself, because you have to register for it, is not open to the public. Therefore, the public couldn't attend it. So I guess I'm retracting that. You can't notice it as a public meeting.
Oh, okay.
Right. So, yep, it's a closed meeting. So unless it was open to the public.
Joel.
Being the council representative to the Chamber of Commerce, and they're behind it, I feel like I really need to know this support. And I would encourage all of it. I understand this law, and I understand that somebody may sue us because we know and listen to feedback.
Is your microphone on, Councilor?
There's risk.
Did you hear me, Aaron?
Let's not talk in a public meeting about knowingly violating public meeting law.
Yeah, I don't mind doing that. If somebody wants to sue me, they can, especially with regards to this. But anyway, I already expressed my meaning, and thank you.
Well,
Okay, so here's what I'm suggesting. I'll be the first one to go to Rock and Rendell's and rent you guys a couple inflatable sumo suits, and we can all butt it out here. But it's kind of long in the tooth here, so you guys have been advised by legal counsel on what you should and shouldn't do, so it's up to you guys to do what you need to do. But unless there's any other matters, then I think
this
we
is
should
where
call
this law doesn't make sense, right? Because I could technically go and represent the board of Main Street Grants Pass, right? I mean, I get I'm a city councilor, but I still have other, again.
What's giving me pause is the statement that said it would include feedback for local government. That feedback for local government then suggests that it would be something that would potentially be coming before council to take action. So regardless of your role as a council member, you'd be receiving information intended for local government to take action.
Rick?
So if we as the city council would like that to be published as a public hearing, would that resolve our issue?
No, because she said it was not a public venue because it's registration only. So it's a closed meeting.
Even though the entity that's putting it on is a public entity?
My understanding is that attendance is limited. So if attendance is limited and not everybody can go, regardless of how many people, that's where you may have problems with that.
I don't think, I know there's registration. I mean, again, somebody could talk to Terry Hopkins tomorrow about it, but I think, I could be wrong, that the registration is only if you want to eat. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. I thought that's what I read. So other than that, it's open to anyone. So again, maybe ask tomorrow.
Any other matters that don't revolve around public meeting laws? Okay, if none, seeing none, staff's good. Anybody? Oh, Jason? You thumbs up? You're just like, go home. Okay. I would be looking for a motion to adjourn. Thank you.
So moved.
Second. Awesome. Thumbs up. We're going home. Thank you very much for your participation tonight.